How you doing, Mike? No idea. Oh, it is. He's been in a couple times. I just haven't seen him for a while. Huh? Okay. We need one more member.
He should be here any minute. Yes.
So.
Morning. Scott. How you doing? Good. Oh, we have a quorum.
I'd like to call to order the special meeting of January for our department presentations. We'll start with a flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the purpose of the meeting is to allow the departments to give a very brief overview of what they do and allow you to ask questions. Very informal, and you have actually a list, I believe, in front of you that shows the sequence. And obviously Ruth's up here and ready to go if you are, Mayor.
Good morning, Mayor and council members, and welcome to the City of Oroville. I have a very brief presentation of what we do in the finance department. I have included handouts for just extra materials, but I just want to do a quick overview of what we do. So our major functions that we do in the finance department are accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash receipting, and payroll. For accounts payable, we process check runs every Thursday. There's approximately about 50 checks a week, and some of them are involved in a purchase order. When something gets approved in council, we go right back and we create a purchase order if it reaches the threshold that's required. So some are paid off of a purchase order and some are paid off of encumbrances. The payments are processed in accordance to the city's budget and purchasing policy. So for accounts receivable, we have several different things we bill. Every month we bill the monthly hangar billing. We bill our retirees for medical benefits, and we bill for citations. And annually we bill for the exempt sewer. All of our sewer is put on property tax bill with the county, but some of them are exempt from property tax, so we have to bill them by hand, and we do that annually too. So cash receipting, we have daily revenue that comes into the city in all shapes and forms, some in the mail, some at the front counter, some electronically deposited. We do a batch every day accounting for everything that's come to the city, and we deposit on a daily basis too. The volume really varies. January is our biggest month because of business licenses. We have a lot of business licenses to process all in January. And then at the 20th of the month, we get all of our utility user tax payments, and it's quite a bit. So there's a lot of little checks to put in the bank. So we're busy those times. And other receipts we get from the front counter, building permits, planning reviews. We have all kinds of things that we charge for. Our payroll is processed every other Friday. We process payroll for about 97 city employees. All of that's done direct deposit, and it shows up in the bank Friday morning. Other things we do in the finance department is our audits. We have an annual financial statement audit. We have just recently contracted with our auditors, Siobhan and Associates. They come in twice a year. They come in right at July when the year's just being wrapped up. They call that their interim audit. And then they come back at the end of October and they do the final audit. We're in the process of finalizing our financial statements for the year 17-18. It should be any day now, but we did have to go on extension because of the campfire. But it's really close to being wrapped up. We do another audit for the Butte County Association of Governments. We have two funds that we get remittances from them, and they control it, so they actually pay for another independent auditor to come in and audit our transportation funds. We have annual state controller reporting. There's the annual financial transactions report. It's quite a big report that has to be done for the state controller. It takes, the first year I did it took me about 2 weeks. We also do an annual streets report, and that's another very detailed, it takes a long time, but those are two other things we do. Other things we do is our annual cost allocation plan. We contracted with Wildan Services this last go around, and they produced a cost allocation plan that we put into place for our 18-19 budget. Another thing we're responsible for is OpenGov. I know the previous mayor mentioned that in an open session not too long ago. I had assigned this to staff, and she got promoted, so we're kind of behind on this, but I did reach out to them, and I'm having them do a presentation to council in February. So that'll be done by them. They'll call in, and we'll get going on that. We also do monthly bank reconciliations. It's been really easy to do a bank reconciliation, but then reconciling back to the software system has proved to be a challenge. But we're getting things moving along better there, so it's getting easier. We do process journals as needed. All of us in the department process journals, and we have numerous quarterly reporting agencies that's listed in one of the handouts that I gave you, but there's just too many to mention. Another thing we're responsible for is the annual budget preparation, and with that we're started doing a 5-year plan. It's been really great. I think this will be the 3rd year we do the budget in our new software, and it has been quite a big upgrade for us, going from Excel to actually having software. We're able to say, you know, put in, this is going to increase 1% every year. We can pin it down to each account. We can extract from our current ledger and say add 2% to that. We're able to do a lot of things, but a lot goes into preparing the annual budget. We aid several departments in grant reporting, and we oversee the city's financial software. So that's a big overview of what we do. I've included a handout. This just has a lot more detail of everything we do, and then the second handout is a list of tasks by position of everything that we do. There's a lot more to it, but I just hit on the overview.
Thank you, Ruth. Madam Clerk, are we going to use the queue, or are we just going to ask questions?
Whichever your prerogative is, we can do either.
Try and keep it fairly informal. This is just
Okay.
your session to learn more about the departments and ask whatever you want to ask.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, my question would be, how many people are in your department?
We have currently we have 3 accounting techs and me. We have a vacancy for an accounting technician that was vacant about September, and we're trying to recruit right now for that.
So if you had one more person, you would be fully staffed?
We actually have another frozen position that would make us fully staffed, but that's been frozen. It's not funded. So we're doing what we can with the 4 accounting techs. And we had a WEX worker helping us out for a while, but she got pulled over to the county for the campfire. So we're kind of getting behind right now, but we do the best we can.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Pittman?
Thank you. The old software was MOM, and
Yes.
I'll just use that word because I know of it. Some of
Yes.
the audience may not know that. Have you completely gotten away from MOM now? And
Yes, we have. Mom was our software. I think I have a little paragraph
You do,
about it
you
in
do.
here. It stands for Multiple Operation Management,
Yeah.
and it was really old. It wasn't upgraded very much. It wasn't keeping up with the times. So our new software, we started in July 17, I believe, and it's wonderful. It's fully integrated. We went from about 135 funds down to 72, and it's been great.
So with the news, is it SunGuard is the name? For the new
It's
stuff?
SunGuard, but they recently changed to Superion, and now they've partnered again, and the name's changed to Central Square.
Oh, Central Square. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
And we're right in the middle. This is another really time-consuming thing. We're in the middle of upgrading. We are using 5.2, and we're jumping to we're using 5.0. We're jumping to 5.2. So they've rolled that out to us, and we're supposed to test all of our functions. That's not going that smooth, but we're trying, and that takes a lot of time because when we do a payroll run, we have to do another payroll run in 5.2 to see that everything. So it's basically a duplication of work that we're trying to do right now, and it's hard to find the time.
With your goal of providing the free and public access or free information access to the public, you mentioned here how the public can actually go online
Yeah.
and see
So
expenditures and those
we're
kind of things.
contracting with OpenGov to provide the city with a financial transparency portal, and we've been challenged to keep it up and updated. Basically, we've been updating it on an annual basis. Our goal was to update it on a monthly basis, and that's been a real challenge to find the time to do that. So we actually contracted with OpenGov to just pull the information. They've partnered with Central Square, and so once we get that built, it's going to be automatic. There's not going to have to be a person that uploads the monthly information. It's just going to happen. So that should be happening very soon.
And in that effort, at the end of that effort, then the public can see almost every expenditure.
You can see everything in there, and you can see what you want to see. So you could click on a certain fund, you can click on a department, and you can double click and see the expenditures. It's going to be depending on what you're looking for. And I think it's going to be really helpful when the OpenGov does their presentation to you in February, and to see what they can do, because we could do a lot with this. I don't know if you're really interested, you could look at the city of Reading. They put all this into place, and they have the greatest website. I would totally love to do what
Well,
they
I
did.
think it helps the public to understand the mystery of local government, and I appreciate the effort.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and their website is so good because you can just click on the things that you're interested in.
Thank you, Ruth.
I have another question. What is the policy for privacy of employees and their records?
The salary is open to the public, and it's actually published in newspapers annually, but any kind of benefit is not.
Is that attached to a name or a position?
Yes,
It is attached
it
to
is.
a name.
A name, a position, and amount they earned for the prior year is published in the paper.
Okay.
In fact, the paper on their website, excuse me, has the salary of every local government employee in our county.
Okay.
If you go onto the Oroville Mercury.
Yeah,
Well,
But
they
it's
like
more
to
of
point out the
a
top
it's more
10.
of an overview, right?
I think just the salary is any kind of, and Scott can speak to that. The benefits are not.
Specifically, personal private information related to health insurance, how many dependents you may have, that information is not available to them. Anything that would disclose that information can be sort of amalgamated with benefits generally. So, for example, it doesn't show specific costs related to just medical insurance versus vision versus dental. It's sort of amalgamated together. Salary, benefits. I believe there is some other there is an other category that lumps other things together. But we try to protect confidential information as much as possible. Several court rulings have held that those broad categories are disclosable. And so salary is disclosable, the total amount of benefits received is disclosable, other compensation is disclosable, and so we disclose as required by law.
Okay.
And we routinely every year get from, there are several groups that do it, but the one that is on the top of my mind because I just saw one the other day is there's a group called Transparency California, ironically based out of Las Vegas, that ask every year for this information from every public agency. And if you go to Transparency California, they have every agency listed on their website and every individual in every position.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that our employees and their privacy is being protected as much as legally possible.
We do, and
Okay.
and we also give, if there have been some recent changes to the Public Records Act, particularly related to police records. In instances where we are going to be disclosing information that we believe is required, as you know, anytime a new law comes into effect, and I'll use the term that the legislature used, great bodily injury. Now, if you can tell me what great bodily injury means, which they did not bother to define, there's a big debate going on amongst city attorneys on a listserv that we have. There are over 400 of us that participate in that. And we're having a great debate about what does great bodily injury mean, because the legislature didn't define it. But we have an obligation to disclose records that may include great bodily injury. And so that's new as of January 1. So we're actually giving the advice that we generally adhere to is when we have to disclose information, we will give the employee and the union notice. Here's what we believe we're required to disclose. If you disagree with that, then we invite you into the case to argue to the court that that's not required to be disclosed. So we do give them opportunities, but yes, we are pretty aggressive about protecting their privacy at every possible turn.
So do we have a policy if, just out of the blue, if someone requests employees' records, the employee would be notified and they could be told who was requesting it?
Liz, it might be a good segue for you to come on up.
Well, we're not quite sure how this is going to work at this point because, this is all, just these laws passed January 1. So I think we're going to see a lot of court cases come out of this. And challenges to these new rules.
Let me deal with the general overall overarching principle. In general, records are not disclosed. Confidential personnel records are not disclosed. Only under certain enumerated circumstances under the law are they disclosable. And I'll use the one that is most frequent. There's a thing called a pitchus motion where a criminal defendant can request information from a police officer's personnel records related to certain instances. It's not who's in their family, what's their address. It's, is there any instance that may relate to their defense in the case that they're in? If they're being charged, for example, with a crime, and they allege that there was impropriety on behalf of the police officer, they can ask, are there any other similar instances related to the impropriety that they're alleging in that particular police officer's file? And if so, initially they only get the name of the individuals who made a previous complaint and the general facts of that previous complaint. They don't get a copy of the personnel file.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but the other names are deducted out of there.
Yeah.
We don't disclose others who were within that situation. So they only get the information they're asking for on that specific info.
And the short answer is we inform the officers beforehand that the information has been requested, and we keep them apprised during that process as to what's going on.
Okay, well, that's in a specific case if there's an investigation going
Sure.
on. But I mean, if someone comes in and says, "Hey, I want to know about Joe Smith, and I want to know what he makes," and do you notify the employee, and do you let them know who's requesting that information?
Not in every case, because when someone comes in and says, "Hey, I want to know what Joe Smith makes," my usual response is, "Go to Transparency California.
Yes.
We're required to give that out. Go get it. It's on the website. You can go find it." So we usually don't give the information out. We usually just point them to where they can find it.
Okay, great.
Having said that, yeah, the Public Records Act requests are, by their very nature, public records. So anybody can come in and say, "I want public record." Who requested the information about, give me the last so many public records that were requested.
Okay, all right, thank you.
If I might interject just for a moment, maybe put it in contrast for us because we're from the private sector. Perhaps just maybe a brief synopsis of the difference between disclosure, privacy, between private and public sector. For an example, I would assume HIPAA is coming into play here for the employees as it relates to their benefit package, for an example. But there might be additional pieces because it's public that there's greater disclosure as per the private sector. So maybe just kind of give us a 30,000-foot preview of that.
Yeah,
Generally speaking, members of the public are entitled to know who is employed by their government. They're entitled to know the names. They're entitled to know the general salaries. They're entitled to know overall compensation. They're not entitled to know what's in your specific benefit package. What are you receiving? What are you getting? What medical services are you needing as it relates to health insurance? Because that may be driving up the cost of health insurance globally for everybody else. They're entitled to very broad general information. There are constitutional protections, both in the California Constitution and in the federal Constitution, that protect the privacy of employees, of public employees. To the extent there is a law that mandates disclosure, and I will tell you there are very few of them, but we sometimes just focus on that which is there. There are very few laws related to disclosure of personal employee information. If someone were to come in and say, "I want the home addresses of all the employees," absolutely not. They're not entitled to that. What they may be entitled to is, and this is currently up in a case pending before the appellate court, is whether the unpublished work phone numbers of employees, are available to the public, but through the Public Records Act. Now, that's not their cell phone, their private cell phone, their personal phone number. It's really anything that is related to the employment itself may be considered a public record. What is the phone number, the office phone number of an employee? Generally speaking, those are considered public records. What is the work email of an employee? Generally, that's a public record. Specific emails that employees send related to work business, related to the city business, are generally a public record.
Scott, can I also add to that because you just made me think of it? Be careful with your personal email and interspersing city email, because once you do that, this happened at Chico State, they can discover and go through your personal email. So be very careful how you intermix your email or what you say.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I'll talk about, and I'll get to that in more detail in my presentation, but.
Okay, thank you. And maybe I should explain my motivation a little bit. I'm just making sure that, and I'm sure they are, but I'm learning. I'm in the learning process here, so I need to ask questions. I just want to make sure that our employees and their privacy is well protected.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add to that just for a moment, I think to answer the question that you're asking is what is the difference between public and private sector? Somebody were to come into your business and ask you about the benefits or the working contracts that you have with your employees, you could tell them none of their business, get down the road, because that's private money, that's your business. being that this is public dollars, for instance, is my contract, the POA contract, the OFFA contract are all online. All of our working conditions, our benefits and everything are outlined in those contracts. So any benefit that I receive, as much as we try to protect it, it's outlined in my contract what I'm receiving. So, you know, those can be found there. So anything that we do, being that it's public dollars, has to be disclosed to the community because it's their money that we're being paid with. So you can find anything you want out about my contract because it's on our website and readily available, much the same with all of the employees. So it's all out there, it's all available. The big difference is that we have to disclose that, whereas in the private sector, you don't have to disclose anything. I mean, you can show them the door. We aren't entitled to do that because it's not private money.
And I just to explain myself, you know, a lot of you might know a little bit of my background, but I have private businesses, and I'm real protective over my employees. So if I seem like I'm digging in here a little bit, it's for your protection and mine. I feel like I'm very protective over our team, and I just want to make that real clear. Thank you.
I'd also like to emphasize that as we go through these presentations, two things. One is you can contact any department you'd like to contact to get more information. We'd encourage it. And please, if you have questions, not now necessarily, but you get an agenda and you have questions, please ask the department. Obviously, we'd like you to have those answers and understand your questions before we come into a meeting.
Yes. Okay.
I think we're ready to move.
Thank you,
go ahead.
Ruth.
So in closing, I was just going to say the exact same thing. I welcome anybody to stop by and ask questions. I'd love to spend time with you and go through any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay, Administration Department, Human Resources, Elizabeth.
Liz, please.
Liz.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. As you know, I'm Liz Ernstrom. I'm the Human Resource Manager for the city. This is starting my 19th year here. And I gave you two handouts. One was the City Hall 101 that we did in 2017, and the other is a more in-depth detailed for each bullet point on the, or the numbers on corresponding on the printout here. I didn't do a PowerPoint just because. So as you can see from the list of things, there are numerous duties that the HR risk management department do. Starting on the first page there, recruitment selection, new hire paperwork, benefits administration for active employees, retirees, and SCORE employees. I sit in on labor negotiations. We do have a labor consultant, but I sit second at the table, keep all the records, take notes, do all the analyzing and preparation of the MOUs to be brought forward to council. ACA reporting, Affordable Care Act reporting, I keep all those records. CalPERS administration and amendments, I do all that. Drug test, we have random drug testing for DOT employees and non-DOT employees, so I keep all those records. I work with DATCO. They do our random selections and send me a list to send people. So I do that. Performance evaluations, I send those out quarterly. I also, consult with the different departments for their HR needs, and like Ruth said, or if they need a recruitment, they'll come to me and say, put this out. I also try to bring employees, not employees, but workers into the city through the WEX STEP and the youth programs through different affiliates in the city. Welfare to Work is the WEX program, so I'm constantly in contact with a guy over at the county, and they, send us people, we interview them, and we put them to work. Like I just put one into the Parks Department for, I think it was 23 hours a week, so that helps them supplement, their skeleton crews out there. Personnel rules and regulations, I keep up on those and amend those as necessary. try to keep up on all the training. I've been trying to delegate that to the department's supervisors to try to get some of that off my plate, but we use Target Solutions, make sure we're in compliance with OSHA and stuff with all our trainings in our courtyard and everything else. So also do the AccuAlarm system, maintain the codes, issuing the keys. If there's any problems, we had a problem up at the CCC where the alarm wasn't, transmitting, so we had to fix that. Also, city collections for liability claims. If there's an accident, like we had an employee in an accident who was hit by a citizen, so I initiate those claims with the insurance companies and collect those monies on behalf of the city. Maintain all the salary schedules, job descriptions, and of course the Department of Transportation. They have different requirements, and I have CHP audits every once in a while, so my books have to all be in compliance with those CHP audits. I do the HR portion of the Superion Financial System, or the new name. I'm not sure, it switches every other month. So I do all the input for new hires and stuff into that system. If they get a pay raise, I'll do that in there. So all the HR functions with the financial system. Accounts payable for HR. There's not too much anymore. With the vision, we went to VSP for our third-party administrator. We are still self-insured there, but at least they process all the claims, so I'm not having to do that. So that has reduced in the last couple years. There are several mandatory annual reporting and renewals that I'm responsible for, and so I have to do that. Oversee the Boy Scout building. I know that's minor, but it's still a facility of the city, and the occupants, I have to meet with them, correspond with them, make sure the facility's kept up and they're following the rules. Of course, maintain records and documentation, all the personnel records, and I keep the medical files and the personnel files, I keep them separate, so all the confidential information is in the confidential file and the personnel files, so I keep those. I administer my personnel budget. I make sure we're in ADA compliance, and sit in on the interactive process. When you have employees who can't perform their duties, we go through an interactive process to help them, to see how we can help them continue to do the essential functions of their position. I do all the workers' comp administration as far as claims and keeping up on that, making sure that those records those claims go forward and get processed and closed out. I'm always pushing for what we call as a CNR, compromise and release, to close out those claims so they're no longer on our books. And I work with our York insurance company to do that. We had a facility risk assessment by Bickmore, so I'm still working through that process. What they did is they came and did an assessment of city facilities and told us where we need to, what we need to do to make sure we're safe. I am the president for NCCSIF right now. That is our JPA for work comp and liability insurance. So I sit on the board of directors, also executive committee and the risk management committee. I'm also the liaison for the risk management committee to the police risk management committee in that process. I'm also an alternate on the CJPRMA Board of Representatives, and that's our excess insurance carrier for liability. So as you can see, there's a long list of things, and I think what I want you to take away from this is that I'm doing the best I can with all this. Could use some help. At some point, even halftime would be a great couple hours just to help. Right now, I'm trying to just kind of keep up on the day-to-day things. There are things that really need to be done, like the personnel rules and regs need to be updated, project things that I can't get to. because there's so much here. So,
Liz, how many bargaining groups do we have? And I mean, we're throwing all these acronyms at these guys. Can you also tell us what they are?
yeah, we have the Oroville Mid-Manager and Confidential Unit. That's your mid-managers. We have the OPOA, which is the Oroville Police Officers Association, and they have a sworn unit and a non-sworn unit under that umbrella. We have the OFFA, which is the Oroville Firefighters Association, and we have the OCEA, which is the Oroville City Employees Association. Those are our miscellaneous groups.
So you will deal with all of those at one point or another in terms of agreements. I know Dave has been through this, Scott's been through this, but virtually every closed session we'll be discussing some aspect of these.
We're actually meeting with police and fire tomorrow for a negotiation session, so you'll probably get an update on that next closed session.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Councilman Pittman?
Quick question about NCCSIF. How big an organization is that now?
We are like 23 cities strong.
And most kind of Northern California?
Well, from central northern. I mean, I think our further south is Elk Grove, maybe, and then up towards up into Siskiyou County, actually. Folsom, Rockland.
I see it as, I remember the city was not part of that group, and the city did join that group, and I think it's an advantage that you can moderate the cost of the needs that the city has.
Yes, and I think, we've done a great job. I've been on the board of directors for, I don't know, most of my 18 years now, and I think there's like 3 main members who've been there that long that we kind of influence and control, the rest of the board of directors, and it's nice to be able to have, a little bit of say into what goes on how we manage that JPA.
I think it's important for the council to understand that group because there will be probably impacts from the recent Paradise incident because they were members, correct? They
are members, and we have discussed that, and we're going to have more discussions about that. We didn't quite know what Paradise was going to do, but there will be more discussion on, what if they can't pay their premiums? I mean, they have no tax base right now, and they are, a big part of our pool. So that will be coming forth, and I'll
appreciate the information.
Guys.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Smith?
Yeah, so I would assume then you're going to attend all the closed sessions as it pertains to negotiation staff?
Yes.
And okay.
Normally I do, yes.
Okay. So is there anyone exempt on the city from the drug testing?
No.
So that includes us?
Well, you have not been, traditionally I've not done council, no. Unless you'd like to join the consortium. I could add your name to the list, for sure.
Sure. And then on the Bickmore Facility Risk Assessment Project, is that an annual, how frequently is that done, and do we get that report?
Well, I have that report, and it's from 2 years ago.
Oh.
And so we're still, they have representatives that work with me, and so we're kind of trying to chip away at it a little bit. But again, it's one of those bigger things that is kind of falling away to the side because I'm trying, I did like 10 hours of work yesterday and only crossed 3 things off my list because you constantly get interrupted, you constantly get pulled away to do other things, and that's the problem, is there's just not enough time in the day.
That's what I wanted to ask, and I'm probably going to ask this of every one of you. How many people are in your department, Liz? Just you?
Just me.
How many people would it take to give you a full staff?
I think one body would be sufficient at this time. For 100 employees, if we started hiring employees, that may change, but I think one staff member would be. And you're going to want succession planning at some point. Mm-hmm. We have none at this time, and we've lost a lot of historical knowledge, retired out the door, and so you want succession planning so that when I'm ready to retire in 7 or 8 years, you have somebody behind me that can step into
absolutely
and pick up where I left off and know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So That's
I mean, and even if you take time off right now, there's no one there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's,
everything pretty much stops. If we have departments here with one person in them and everything, that department stops when that person's not there.
absolutely. And then
Okay.
you're doing 3 times the work when you get back because
Hmm.
it's all piled up.
I know how that feels.
Yeah, I bet.
Councilmember Smith again?
I'm good.
You're out.
I'm good.
Well, you got
Thank
this. If you want to come visit and discuss more, I'm more than happy to talk with each and every one of you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay, City Clerk's Office, Jackie Glover.
You guys have this in front of you up there somewhere. So hello. So just a brief overview of what the clerk's office does. We're the local official who administers the democratic process, ensuring things that happen such as elections, access to public records, and all legislative actions, including or ensuring transparency to the public. Those in the audience, so the one in front of you is slightly different than the one that you have at your desk because I did update it to say city administrator because it said city manager on it. And just real briefly too, this document came from the National Clerk Association, but it pretty much sums up what I do, so I figured it was a good resource. So as you can see too, we're also a compliance officer, but we work with the attorney and city administrator to make sure that statutes are being followed, including the Political Reform Act, Brown Act, Public Records Act. And then I also manage inquiries and relationships and arrange for ceremonial and official functions. Just looking at it from a triangle standpoint, the council, you guys are responsible for creating the policy, the administrator is responsible for executing the product, and then the clerk is responsible for the process. So we make sure that the decision-making process is transparent and complies with all federal, state, and local regulations, and that it's properly recorded. Some of the areas that the clerk is responsible for is we are an elections official, we're a legislative auditor, we're a municipal officer, political reform filing officer, records archives, public inquiries and relationships, and city council support services. So for elections, we handle things like we consolidate our elections with the county. So we're responsible for all of the local things in our office, and then the county handles the actual elections. We are also responsible for making sure that ballot measures and charter amendments are ready to go for elections, working with the departments that are putting them together. New initiatives. We also are the elections official for referendums and recalls. For the local legislation auditor, we are responsible for public notices and for public hearings and different items. We're responsible for the contracts and agreements. Once the staff have created the contracts and agreements, we're responsible for making sure that they get executed and signatures and that they're archived for holding on to. Also, we're responsible for bonds and insurance. We're the authority to execute instruments. We also, again, with ordinances and resolutions, that's once the staff have created them, then we're responsible for executing them and making sure that they're archived appropriately. And then we also are the keeper for the municipal code, making sure that as you guys pass laws and that they get updated in the municipal code. We're also the municipal officer. So from my department, I clerk the council. I also clerk the arts, parks, planning, and SBF meetings. I perform attestations, administer affirmations and oaths of office, maintain the custody of the seal. I accept subpoenas and lawsuits. Sometimes those will go directly to Scott, but if they don't, they come through me and then head that way. And then countersign general obligation bonds, and I'm the file official for bonds. For the political reform filing, I'm responsible for making sure that we have all the Form 700s, that everyone that needs to fill them out has completed them, and that they get sent to the FPPC. And also all other campaign finance forms that are listed there. And then as far as records, I receive and answer public records requests. I do indexing, research, and retrieval for records that the public is requesting, and also records retentions. This includes things that are that I'm supposed to retain for a 2-year time period, or correspondences received and sent by council members, so that if they're publicly requested, that we have those. Also, maintaining the minutes of all of the meetings of the city council, commissions, and committees. Minutes are historical legal records of recording actions and proceedings. And then with public inquiries and relationships, I'm basically the liaison between the public and you guys when they're trying to get access to you, giving them information, helping them to learn how to participate in government, and just any requests they have for actions that you've taken, or what is going on with the process. Other things that I help with are ceremonial functions, resolutions, awards. We do proclamations, helping with administrative tasks with the commissions, resource, research, history, and then some other things that I also have that are part of the clerk's office is I work with vehicle registrations, making sure that vehicles get registered and processed, and holding on to the pink slips and all of that. Claim forms, once they've been, they come in, I'll have the claim form. As the process goes, I retain all of the information for claims through the city. And then also I have a container of keys. I can't tell you what they all go to, but I have a box of them. If you ever want keys to something, I might have it. That's a lot of what we do. There's probably things that I'm missing, but that's kind of an overview of what we do.
Thank you.
Any questions?
A quick one. When someone from the public calls in and asks for a councilman to attend a meeting, that pretty much is your role to coordinate that communication to the council and make agenda or set appointments and times. I mean, that's been the past. I'm assuming that's the future.
So we had a historical lapse in having a clerk here at the city for about 7 months. And so us coming in, I'm doing the best I can to kind of, one, do what I need to do as the clerk, but also learn kind of what is happening. And I'm learning that as people tell me. Currently with those kinds of requests, usually what I'll do is I'll email you telling you that there's an individual that is requesting a meeting with you or contact with you, and then you can give me direction as to whether you want to set it up yourself or if you'd like me to.
Well, I see it as a need to, so we don't cross calendar dates and times and all that kind of thing. That's a huge coordination effort. Just, and I'm not trying to defer the public from contacting any one of us, but if I get a contact and I'm going to meet someone, I don't want to conflict with any other council members. So I'll run, I would run it through you just to make sure you're aware of A, B, and C, what's going on. So
sure. And that city administrator office does have a calendar. If you are setting up meetings in there, you can always shoot me an email and say, hey, can you put me on the calendar for this time at, and I can check the calendar to make sure that it is open for you. Thank you. But I can also set up the meetings for you. So I'm not trying to defer it back to you. I'm just letting you know that there's options for either me setting it up for you or you setting it up for yourself. But if you do want to use one of the rooms, the fireside room, or the city administrator room, I can definitely check the calendar, and or even the chambers. I can check and make sure that they're available for use for you.
Thank you.
I'd like to look through those keys.
They're interesting looking.
Who handles, I don't know if I missed it while you were speaking, but who handles the city business licenses?
That is actually the building and planning department that handles this.
All right. And then, Jackie, how many people are in your department?
So right now, I have a consultant part-time in my department helping to train me. Otherwise, it is just me by myself. When she leaves in March, I will be alone in my department.
Okay. And how many people do you think you need to fully staff your department?
Joanne and I have discussed this numerous times. Honestly, with a lot of the archiving and stuff like that that gets put on the side, we believe that another part-time employee would be very helpful for the department.
Okay. And to Mr. Huber, we have a city ordinance that prevents council members from directing subordinate staff directly, and I would like that supplied to everyone. We are actually, the proper protocol is for us to interact with department heads, not subordinate staff. I believe that creates confusion in departments. So I would like everyone provided with that, so we're all aware of the policy.
Okay, I
Thank
can
you.
pull it from the municipal code.
Councilman Smith.
Yeah, just one quick question regarding email. As we know, that's been a popular topic in the news from time to time when it comes to public officials. So when we reply to a constituent, do you typically review that? I mean, what would that process be? Oh, you're going to deal with that. Okay. All right. Super. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, Jay.
Okay, our attorney, Scott Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. So I invite you to interrupt me and ask questions just as they come up if you'd like. I'm more than happy to deal with any questions you may have. The city attorney's office, and I've got sort of an overview, and then we'll do a 30,000-foot aerial view, and then we'll take a deep dive in just a few areas. This does not cover every area that our office does, nor that you need to know about it. But I'll give you just the general highlights of the most important information. The city attorney's services are provided pursuant to a contract with a private law firm called, it used to be called Coda Huber. It's now Huber because my mentor, longtime mentor and partner Dennis Coda took a position on the federal bench in Reading, actually, and so we were required to change the name. But I currently serve as a city attorney, and then we have 17 attorneys firm-wide that provide services. So the individual that is on a particular matter will depend on the expertise that's needed. We have every expertise that the city needs, with two exceptions, and those two exceptions are municipal bankruptcy, which I hope we never need, and if we all do our job right, you will never need that. And number two, bond counsel. And bond counsel specifically is something that we don't do, and you don't want us to do it, because there's great risk in bond issues. So when the city decides to, I'll use the colloquial term, float a bond, which we haven't done in some time, although there have been some related to the hospital that we were just a pass-through for. But if the city needed to float a bond for some issue, we would want to have separate bond counsel. You would want to have separate bond counsel, because it is very detailed, very complex, governed in many instances by the SEC, and trouble in that area can result in massive liability.
Scott, can I interrupt you for a second? I don't know if you all know this. I knew coming in, I didn't know it. It just simply, the bond simply means a way that we borrow money, and it's called a bond, considered a mortgage. I just want to make sure you understand what we're talking about.
So our office provides city attorney services to the council. We don't represent individual council members in individual, private matters that you have. But if there's someone who does file a lawsuit against the city and names one of you in your capacity as a council member, then we do defend that. We oversee all litigation in the city, and we review all claims that are filed against the city for handling. We review ordinances, resolutions, contracts, and other legal documents related to city business to make sure that they're compliant with the law. We also give advice to all of the staff as they deal with the issues that they're dealing with. And I'll use one example that you may hear about later. For example, the Business and Housing Department, as it relates to home loans, foreclosures, what do we do with borrowers that may be in default? We give advice into those matters. And again, we deal with all of the legal advice for the city. Liz talked a little bit about what I'll put under the umbrella of insurance or risk, the risk pool. The city utilizes a joint powers authority, which is a separate legal entity to deal with its risk. We partner with 23. There are 23 agencies together, so we partner with 22 other public agencies to mitigate our risk. We think of it like an insurance company. We contribute our premium, and then when a claim comes up that's covered under the contract, and there is a separate contract for that, then that goes to the risk pool for their handling. There is a policy, and I think it's a good one, that the contract city attorney does not provide services that are covered under the risk pool for that city. So if a lawsuit came in alleging, and I think Liz, I'll turn the situation around. She mentioned that an employee was hit by a member of the public. I'll flip that over. If an employee rear ends someone else, and we get a lawsuit about that, you don't want my office as a city attorney to handle that, and there's a policy against that from the insurance pool. We send that out to the insurance pool. They have contract counsel that come in and deal with that. Interestingly enough, our firm is a member of that contract counsel list. We handle litigation for other cities, but not for the city of Oroville that's covered by the contract. We do handle litigation that is not covered by the contract. And that happens from time to time, not very often, fortunately, because litigation that's not covered by the contract comes out of your own pocket, as far as legal fees, cost to resolve the litigation, etc. There is a third-party administrator that handles those claims on a day-to-day basis, sort of like an insurance claim adjuster. They'll come in and they'll take the case, they'll get it to some attorneys, and they'll sort of handle the case as it goes on. My role in that, and the reason why I bring that up, is my role in that is frequently I'll have counsel that will call me to save money for the risk pool for the JPA. They will call me and say, hey, we need to give an update to the council. Can you do that for us? Absolutely. And that's why we'll list it in closed session. We'll talk about it. They may need authority to resolve an action. Usually I'll be the one presenting that. That doesn't mean I'm representing the city in that case. That means I'm just a conduit for you. There are a handful of litigation cases pending against the city, and I won't get into those now, but we will put on for closed session a review of all of the litigation cases. Some of them have been long-standing. One in particular began before I became the city attorney. It started in 2009, I believe, from an incident from a sanitary sewer overflow into a dentist's office. That case is currently pending before the California Supreme Court on an issue of first impression. There is an issue that has never been decided before. We happen to be the unlucky ones that had to take it all the way to get to that point. Now this is being handled by the insurance pool, but I will give you all the details on that and some of the other cases that are pending. Right now, I'm just giving you publicly available information, so I'm not breaching any privacy or any attorney-client privilege. We touched on email for a moment, so let's dive into email. You either have been issued already, or you shortly will be issued an email address with the ending at cityoforoville.org, right? And they can set it up on your individual device so you can send and receive email from that email address. What I would suggest is only use it for city business, number one, and number two, don't use a personal device or a personal account for any city business. And the reason why is this: your emails related to city official business are public records. A member of the public has a right to know what you wrote to someone else. Much like, and I use this analogy, Much like every good financial planner will help you reduce your tax exposure, I want you to reduce your exposure to public records. Simply don't create them if you don't have to. If you can pick up the phone and call, I recommend that, because then you are not creating a record. Now, some people say, well, you're getting around the Public Records Act. No. I am suggesting strict compliance with the Public Records Act. No one has a right to come in and say, I want to know, Mr. Mayor, what you talked on the phone to with some member of the public. That's not part of the Public Records Act. But if you send an email to that individual, that is a public record. So I am suggesting compliance with the Public Records Act. If you can make a phone call, go ahead and make a phone call. Sometimes an email is easier, and that's fine. I'm not suggesting any issue with that. But the reason why we do want you to use the city email for all of that business is if a member of the public comes and says, I want, and I'll just pick on you because I'm looking at you for the moment, Mr. Vice Mayor, I want the Vice Mayor's emails from January 1st to January 31st on this particular topic. We can search in our server for that. Now, we'll let you know. We'll let you know of the request. We'll let you know what they were asking for. But we will also ask, have you communicated outside of the email system in any written form? Text messages are covered under the Public Records Act. So if you send text messages related to city business, my recommendation is that you don't do that. And because those, we will need to come and ask you for them and ask you to disclose them to us. If you're using a personal email for city business, the California Supreme Court in the last 6 months, from a case that generated out of the city of San Jose, council members were communicating with members of the public on their private email addresses. And they had said, well, these are not city records. And the Supreme Court said, they relate to city business. They are city records. You have to disclose them. So it makes it so that we would then have to come to you and say, have you used your private email address? And you say, yes. Well, now I need access to your private email, and we don't want that. So if you use, and these are all cautionary tales, and I'm glad we weren't the city of San Jose that had to fight that fight, because interestingly enough, Public Records Act litigation is not covered by the Joint Powers Authority. That's one of the things that is excluded. So anyway, so use your email address from the city for city business and only city business. Try to remember to not conduct private business through the city email, although we can protect strictly private. You know, if you were to send an email, for example, to Liz related to some insurance issue, you know, for a private insurance matter, we can exclude that as a private matter. That's not a problem. But it's easier to just pick up the phone and call, because then there's no record. So that's any questions on email. You had a question about responding to members of the public.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Relates to email, and then I think Jackie referenced that.
Yeah.
You know, that's reviewed, so our correspondence typically reviewed, or is our process or policy for that?
No.
Just unless it's requested.
Yeah, if you request it, we'll take a look at it. But generally speaking, we don't review anything that you want. If you want to correspond with a member of the public on some matter, go right ahead. The warning I would give, and this is sort of a Brown Act warning, is the Brown Act requires that the city business official business be conducted in public with full disclosure to the public related to that matter. If you, and since it was your question, I'll pick on you for this. If you communicate with a member of the public related to some matter that is official city business, and you copy all of the council members on your email, that is a technical violation of the Brown Act. Now, I am one that will very quickly say, in that instance, the solution is you just disclose it, and you've now resolved the violation. But it's much easier to stay in the safe harbor of not violating the Brown Act. So frequently when you get emails from city staff that need to go to all council members, my preference is that, for example, if the city clerk needs to send an email to everybody related to some matter, here's some documentation regarding an item that's on the agenda. My preference is that the city clerk actually send it to herself, and that she blind copies every council member. So you're on the BCC line, you may not see it, and the idea is that you won't see it, because if you hit reply all on accident instead of reply, On a reply all, it will only go back to the city clerk in that instance. If we put everybody in the to line or in the CC line and you hit reply all, it goes to everybody.
Mr. Attorney, won't this be provided in some sort of training that we're going to get?
It will, yeah.
We're here for an overview of each department's duties, right?
Yeah, and I apologize. That was a deep dive just based on the questions that you were getting.
That's okay. I just considering everyone getting back to work.
Let me hit just the last issue. I am in many instances sort of the de facto parliamentarian at a city council meeting. If you have a question about about how things work, about members of the public, are they staying within the bounds? You can. I will frequently jump in. That's my role. If you want me to not do that, then say so. That's fine. But I frequently will jump in that scenario. But that's it. That's really. I'll get into some of these other areas that require more in-depth analysis later.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
One more area that Scott covers and Liz cover, the Brown Act, and I know you've been hammered with it, but it is very complex. We'll probably have a separate training session on it. The whole idea of these serial meetings you can't do and where you can attend and can't and what you can talk about. But I think you're aware of the basics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, information technology, Tyson Pardee.
Good morning. I'm Tyson Pardee. I'm the IT manager for the city, and so we are information technology. We actually support everyone. So City Hall, Public Safety, the Courtyard, City Museums, and even the airport. So things that we do and manage, maintain, upgrade, those kinds of things are going to be security first and foremost. Firewall, antivirus, encryptions. We're trying to follow, again, all the HIPAA, PCI, DOJ, DOD compliance in a lot of what we do. The data center, from the servers to the switches, wireless. We have point-to-point wireless between some of the buildings, keeping those secure. But also then to the applications. So you've heard about what's listed up here as Finance Plus, but that is the SunGuard or Central Square today. That's that product. The other major ones we deal with: Office 365 for email, for licensing of the Outlook clients, the software that comes with it, and then Track It, which does all of our permitting and business licenses, code enforcement. That's the system that keeps all those records together. Laserfish, it's a document repository, but it's also workflow. So we can create workflows that takes any piece of information and moves it around. Even if it's not in the system, we can connect to some of our databases and move that data. Granite.net or GraniteNet, that is for the sewer department. And then there's a bunch of other applications that are smaller, one-off applications. So then we also take care of the end users. The PCs, the tablets, printers, cell phones, anything that the end user is utilizing to do their daily task. We take care of those. Another big thing that we do is we support public safety completely. So we do all of their 911 phone systems, the CAD, which is their dispatching program, and emergency reporting, which is on the fire side. That's where they keep a lot of their reports that they have to do for reporting back to the state and the Fed level. But we also do radio communications, all their handhelds and car radios and all of that. That's what we support as well. And then council chambers, all the audio and video that you see happening in this room, we take care of that as well. And even when we go off-site to like the State Theater, that we go in and we make sure that we're recording the video, we've got the audio, so that we're in compliance with making sure that we have that archived. Another big one, GIS mapping. We actually, I don't know if everyone's familiar with that, but it's the Geographical Information System, and we can do maps that are actually interactive. And we have guys out in the field, like with our sewer department, where on their smartphones they have maps of all of their pipes, and they can easily see them instead of trying to go back to the office, print out the pages, and go back out to the field. But other than that, there's a lot more that goes on to it, and really all low voltage devices. Anything that's got a computer board in it, we take care of it. So there's a lot there that I've missed, you know, because it's just smaller details, but if it's low powered, we do it. Did you want to? So this is just, are you guys familiar with GIS and how it works? Okay. No, you're not? Okay. So with GIS, we can do layers within a map. So you have the basic map like Google Maps, and you can turn on and off things like traffic. It's those kinds of layers that we can build within our own mapping infrastructure. And like the example of the sewer, we can put a layer where we've already got a base image of the city, and we can overlay those pipes, and they can turn on and off what they want to see in regards to that map. And then we also are tying in, GIS has kind of become our central database for a lot of our information, because the parcel and address information really helps out in our products like Track It, or Granite, which again is the sewer, or RIMS, which is the CAD system, which is the computer-aided dispatching for the police department. All of those have that underlying address and parcel information that's needed, along with, like with Track It, maybe sewer connections or owner information, those kinds of things. And so we've really spent a lot of time beefing up our GIS data, and we actually are tied in with the GIC, who maintains all that information. And so we just get an import quicker than we used to. We used to have a disk that got sent to us that was already months old. Now we're talking pretty quick. I think once a week we're doing that import. So our data is much more fresh and readily available. And then we do have interactive maps on our website that can be seen. So if you guys are interested in that, you know, feel free to take a look at those. Come ask us questions. Jesse is actually sitting in the back here. He's our GIS specialist. He can help you out if you got questions on some of those maps as well.
I have a question.
Okay.
As far as maps, are you able to map the setbacks on properties?
That would be.
We would be able to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we've done yet. We do have property lines. They're not engineering grade, but we could calculate off of those.
Okay, thank you.
But that's the end of the presentation that I've got.
Short question, the solar systems, the city has an extensive solar system. Are you involved in that because of the computer base, or is there another company?
Because of the computer side of it, my hands are a little bit in it, but as far as the solar panels and what we're doing with them, I do not have any part of that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
That GIS system is really cool. So any member of the public, if you have property in the county, and it's just amazing. Yeah, how you can drill down. I love it. So just kind of a brief. I know that there was some budgeting this last year for upgrading. Is there anything pending that we just need to be aware of? You know, year 2, 3 type of thing that your department may be looking toward, as far as, you know, addressing any upgrades that are kind of like big items?
Right. The only thing I really have, and I touched on with Laserfish, the extent that it can do a lot of work for us, it can automate a lot of our processes. That's kind of where I want to put a lot of our efforts moving forward. So when it comes down to that, just might be some extra licensing, or maybe even help, having someone come in who knows how to build those workflows, and maybe, you know, just getting a consultant to do that. That's kind of what I see, aside from just regular upgrades that happen.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One quick question. In terms of the data storage,
Yes.
and given that we've had the multiple issues and incidents we've had with evacuations and whatnot, is our data storage safe and secure, or would you have any recommendations for that?
That actually brings up a good thing. It is secure. We have it. It's local, and we are looking to how we can get it off-site in a a good cost. Right now, up till recently, the costs have been pretty big to really move that off-site into the cloud or some kind of facility. But that is something actively I'm working on right now to make sure we have that out. But also with the partnering with the county as well, because they replicate between a couple with Chico and local here in Oroville. But some of our stuff, like with our CAD system, you know, there's possibilities that they could move some of our data in the event of an emergency. So
thank you.
Yeah.
How many people are in your department?
There's 2 of us.
How many would you need to be fully staffed, or do you consider yourself fully staffed?
You know, it'd be nice to have one more person. Really kind of more of the help desk level. It would allow Jesse and I to be doing more of what could move the city forward with the automation, with Laserfish and those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Supplemental Benefits Fund, Jordan Daly.
Hi there. My name is Jordan Daly. I'm the program specialist for the Supplemental Benefits Fund. I have been in this position since September, so bear with me since I'm probably the newest one to their position. So I'll give you guys just a little bit of a brief background on the Supplemental Benefits Fund. It's pretty in-depth, so if you guys want to meet with me after, that would be great. I sit as a city employee on several event committees. They're listed here. So I attend the Wildlife Nature Festival, Feather Fiesta Days, Salmon Festival, 4th of July, Holiday Parade of Lights, ODBA special events, chamber liaison between promotional and tourism events, ORAC meetings, and tourism committee. The SBF, really brief background of it. The Supplemental Benefits Fund, which is the SBF, was the result of a settlement agreement signed by multiple parties associated with the relicensing of the Oroville facilities. So that is the FERC Project 2100, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Approximately $61 million over the next 30 to 50 years will be made available for recreational and economic projects dependent on the final licensing terms. So that can waver between what is actually determined. Pending the approval of the FERC licensing, since it is pending, the Oroville facilities advance funds have been made available by the Department of Water Resources. Since 2011, they have given $100,000 each year. And then in 2017, DWR gave $3 million just to allow potential fundings for projects for the SBF. Project approved by the SBF Steering Committee are intended for areas in the greater Oroville region to improve the quality of life, stimulate economic development, and enhance recreation along the Feather River. Just some of my assignments as SBF special or program specialist are aspects of all the SBF public meetings, the SBF ad hoc committees, go-to person for SBF knowledge. I'm a liaison between DWR, state water contractors, and others. I maintain the SBF page within our city website, financial monitoring of that fund, develop all written materials, staff reports, agendas, the notice of funds available, write and administer contracts and agreements if projects are funded, and implement any decisions made by the steering committee. So that kind of brings me to my steering committee. It's composed of 5 voting members. 3 of you are actually just voted in as our city council members, and 2 from Feather River Recreation and Parks District Board of Directors. As well as those 5 voting, we have 4 non-voting advisory members, representatives from state water contractors, Chamber of Commerce, American Rivers, and Department of Water Resources. We hold quarterly public meetings every 4th Wednesday, January, April, July, and October. Any other meetings besides those 4 are considered special meetings. What's going on in SBF right now, which is pretty big, is that in September, the steering committee released $2,530,000 to be available funds. And that was broken down into 3 different categories to be used as marketing benefit, projects, or revolving loan fund. There was a workshop held if people were interested in applying for that, and it was held on October 4th. We had 18 attendees. There was also that NOFA closed the end of October. We received 13 applications. We have our special meeting scheduled for January 16th at 1, and all 13 applications will be presented in that meeting. This graph just kind of breaks down from 2006 to 2018 how funds have been used. Over 60% of the funds that we've had have gone straight to projects. Those projects include the Riverbend Park, Fort Bay Aquatic Center, museum brochures, Veterans Memorial, and even our Eagle statue here in council chambers. We do not see, with more money coming in, we do not see this wavering. We feel the highest majority should be going to projects for these funds. There is a lot more information regarding the SBF. It goes way more in depth. We can go to the city website to see more information. DWR's website also has very in-depth information about SBF and FERC licensing as well if you would like to meet with myself. Thank you for the opportunity. If you guys would like, I would love the 3 on my committee to come meet with me if we could discuss some stuff more in depth.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
No. Nice to meet you.
How many people are in your department?
It's just myself. I have a part-time person training me right now, a contracted employee, until probably mid-February.
And you consider yourself fully staffed?
Yeah, this is a one-man position.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Community Development Department, Engineering, Mike Massaro.
Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Massaro. I'm an engineer with Bennett Engineering Services, and I serve as a contract employee covering city engineering responsibilities. Here. So this is the kind of a basic list of my role as city engineer. I report to Community Development Director. Interim Director is Gary Lehman right now, and of course City Administrator. I provide engineering support for all of our public works, which includes streets, sewer, and parks as needed. I handle communication with area utilities and encroachment permits. So pretty much every week I come up, I have a stack of encroachment permits for PG&E, Cal Water, any of the rehab work they're doing that's ongoing. I have oversight of that and provide comments to them on what they need to do and what their fees are. I provide coordination and support with other departments as needed for planning department and development review, airport as needed, and then of course capital improvement programs for streets and sewer. My responsibilities, as I mentioned, sewer, street, storm drainage, utilities coordination. We also manage grant funding, both acquisition and management. We have several grants that are active right now, most of them through Caltrans, that were at various stages of completion. Some are just initiating, some we're trying to close out, and processing those grants and finishing them out. It's a bit of an administrative burden, but it's important because for us to be eligible for future grant funds, we need to make sure that we're processing those in a timely fashion. So it's been a big push when I came on in mid-2017 to collect all those and figure out where we're at and get those moving. I also do planning and preliminary design for projects that come up, and then I'll do contract and project management for other engineers working for the city, construction management contracts, things like that. I'll act in the project management role for that type of work. Pretty much week to week, we're doing plan checking and map checking. Folks come in with lot line adjustments, parcel mergers. We have a part-time surveyor in my office who's able to review those for me, make sure they're compliant with the Subdivision Map Act, and then I'm able to sign off on them on behalf of the city and get them recorded at the county. And then, of course, I support planning and development with plan checking of subdivision plans. A lot of our commercial developments come through both building department with Gary, and then I review the civil plans and connection to storm drain and sewer and that kind of stuff. I'll also coordinate with the other area utilities on those, Thermalito Water and Sewer District, Cal Water, just to make sure we're talking to each other about impacts and issues. So it's gotten better about that in the last year, getting to know those folks and coordinating a little better than when I first got here. I also review conditions of approval for subdivisions, site developments, plat maps, that kind of stuff, and we're seeing a lot of them lately. Gary and I have been pretty much flooded with old subdivisions that are coming back to life, which is a good sign. Some of our active projects, we had other projects last year, pavement and such. Some of you see Oak Street got repaved. So right now we have a sewer design project going on to add capacity to our sewer system. It's a pretty substantial project. It's going to expand some sewer capacity here on Montgomery in a small section, a good portion of Table Mountain, and the majority of the work is going to be along Oro Dam Boulevard, which be pretty challenging construction when we get there. So we're working on that design right now. I have a pretty ambitious pavement list for this year. I have a design amendment that's going to be coming forward to council here shortly to do the design work on that. And much like last year, it's a little larger than last year's effort. We did Myers Street, Oak Street, portion of 2nd Street over by the county buildings, and then Myers and Wyandotte. There's some roads that were in pretty bad shape, and we got those rehabbed. So we have a little longer list this year, and a little more money due in part to SB1 gas tax. Last year we got about 100,000 out of them. This year we're going to see a little over 300,000, and that's a big shot in the arm for us in terms of what we can spend on pavement and rehab. So we're gonna put that money on the street. Let's see. I have a buried manhole project. Caltrans did a project where buried some of our manholes, and Cody hasn't been able to access those, so we're trying to get those back. I finally got an encroachment permit through Caltrans. We're working on some maintenance agreements with them so we can move forward. It's a pretty straightforward project, but we're going to be taking that out to bid, and we'll probably do the construction management of that in-house. I have a drainage issue on Falg Avenue we've been working through. We thought we had a solution for it, but have some utility conflicts there, so we're revising our approach, and I'll be bringing that back to council as well. And then we have some grant management going on. We have a pretty large CMAQ and ATP grant. CMAQ stands for Capacity Management and Air Quality. We have about $540,000 coming out of that fund through the state to help pay for the preliminary engineering on that project, and then the active transportation program will pay for the construction. It's about $3.2 million. That project is to improve pedestrian bicycle safety along State Route 162. It's supposed to improve accessibility and walkability of that corridor all the way from the Feather River Parkway up to Olive Highway and beyond. So we're gonna, as soon as we get our maintenance agreement all signed and documented there, we're just about done with that. We're going to be putting out an RFP for another consulting firm to do that design and carry that project forward. My company will act as a project manager in that capacity and oversight of that project. We have an older project, bicycle transportation account. That's not a program that the Caltrans has anymore. It's all rolled up under ATP now, but this is a project that's related to the other project that was supposed to be done a couple of years ago, and it's been a struggle to get an encroachment permit through Caltrans. They keep adding on to the project, so I think we finally got them happy, and we're going to get this project moving and get it out to bid. The project's effectively designed. We have another consultant who's working on that project. GHD Engineering has been doing the design on that for a few years, and they have some changes to make, and then we'll get that project out to bid. And then probably manage that one in-house as well. I want to talk a little bit about the nature of our contract, since I'm not a full-time employee. I'm a part-time employee for the city, a contract employee. I'm here one day a week. Usually it's Tuesday as scheduled. That position is paid for out of the general fund. It's a 5-year contract at $120,000 a year is budgeted. We do that work, and we do this work in several cities at a reduced rate. That rate is well below our burdened rate for engineering. We do that to help cities because of budget issues, and most of that money goes against the general fund. The reason we do that is so we can do design work, and we do sewer, water, streets, and roads as a firm. And when those projects come up, we'll do those as design amendments, and those are paid for at our full rate. And those are typically paid for by our special funds. Almost never, I would say never, does the design projects come out of general fund. They are usually coming out of drainage, storm, sewer, and road budgets to pay for both design, construction management, and construction of those projects. So I wanted to explain a little bit of the nature of our contract. I think there's been some confusion in the past that the amount of our contract kind of covers everything. What it covers is the general engineering services that I've outlined, in addition to some other things, but it doesn't cover design work that we do. It will cover certainly anytime I'm doing project management of other consultants or construction managers. That work's all done at that reduced rate. But design work is separate and apart from that contract. I just want to make that clear because it's been a point of confusion for some folks, and I wanted to clear that up. The other thing I do that brings me up here a little more often than once a week is I'm on the management committee for BCAG, on the Transportation Advisory Committee for BCAG. Those meetings are once a month in Chico. We coordinate with the other cities, Gridley, Paradise, Chico, and of course the county on transportation programs and projects. And BCAG, of course, facilitates some of our funding that we use for roads and streets. I'm also on the management committee for the Wyandotte Creek Joint Powers Authority. It's our new groundwater management authority. We're a party to that with Thermalito Water and Sewer District and Butte County. And so we've been meeting once a month. That's another responsibility I just inherited. So we're coordinating on that. I'll be bringing a short presentation to council here soon and asking for volunteers to join that Joint Powers Authority from our council. We'll need a one-person liaison from the council for that role, and then an alternate to serve on that committee. That's going to help manage the groundwater region in the lower Wyandotte Creek. So, see, is that? Yep, that's all I had. Any questions for me?
So you have a contract of $120,000 a year. Have you ever exceeded that? What is that, about 950 hours or so at $125 an hour?
Yeah.
And have you ever exceeded that?
Well, the first year we started, that was based on the fiscal year, so from June through to the following June. When we started in 2017, I actually started in March right away and jumped right in to help out with a construction management project on Table Mountain Roundabout. So that there was some confusion on that year because the way Don Russ set that up was it's $120 a year on the fiscal year plus an additional amount. I think it was about $30,000 for those first few months before the fiscal year started. So that first year was $150,000. So we spent a lot of time going back and forth on that to make sure we got that clear. So that first year's budget was a little different because it was more than 1 year. But yeah, so the work I do between special assignments and monthly, I have to monitor that to make sure that when we make it to the next fiscal year that I'm landing that plane with the fuel that's left and not exceeding that budget.
Okay, and you're the one monitoring that?
Yep, but I have oversight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I was just, because it goes both ways. I mean, if we're paying when we go over, are we getting anything when we go under? but it looks like you're managing it to where it's going to hit right where it needs to.
We try, yeah, definitely try to.
Okay.
Last year, last year I came up a little short actually. So the last month there was,
Okay.
cobbling it together.
And you represent a firm, but for this contract, we enjoy the benefits of your whole office?
That's correct. The advantage that I have, my background's primarily in sewer design, water and pipelines, trenchless technology, directional drilling. That's where the bulk of my resume lies. I'm not a roads and streets expert. Luckily for me, more than half my company's business comes out of that world. And we have good relationships with Caltrans, and I got excellent road designers. And so when I have a project like that, I hand it off and I let the experts do what they do.
Now, you say that Caltrans covered up some of our manholes. Are they going to absorb that cost to expose those originally, or are we going to be reimbursed?
Unfortunately, no. The original agreement was that the city was going to pay for the recovery of our utility in that corridor because it's Caltrans right away, and it was all set up to happen. And as that work was being completed, that contractor was going to do the work and then invoice the city. And we lost our city engineer about a month and a half before that happened. The contractor called the city. No one was here to pick up the phone and carry it forward. We only had that one person in public works and city engineering, and it just didn't get done. And so it's just one of those things. As I came in after a 9-month gap of no city engineer, is one of the things I found just digging through. And here's a project. And Cody, I've been very fortunate to have really good staff on roads and streets and sewer who understand the system very well and the history, and have brought me up to speed on issues and to help me figure out where these things are, because I just had to go find them. And so, unfortunately, we have a letter that committed the city to pay for that work. It only take a couple of days. It's not a big construction project to get those raised and put back. The majority of the cost, to be honest, is in traffic control, not the actual construction work to bring those up to grade.
Moving forward, though, we have you keeping an eye on those things.
Yep.
Because a couple days here, a couple days there, at the end of the day, I understand. We have some questions. Council Member Thompson, please.
Could you again give a little more definition on the difference between contracted hours and special projects that you guys work on, and the funding that comes for the special projects?
So the special assignment rate, typically what we assign to the special assignment rate is when a project arises. So issue came up about, say pedestrian safety at the roundabout. We looked at some options. We proposed some solutions and a cost estimate to do some flashing beacons there. That work was done as a special assignment, so that was the special assignment rate. Again, all still within the annual contracted city engineer budget. So I have to watch both those things. If I'm billing the projects at 2 rates, most of the work I do is at the lowest rate. But when I have a project to investigate, a traffic study or something like that we need to look into that's specific to a job, or that might develop into a design project, typically we'll create a task order for that and do it under the special assignment rate to develop it. At that point, I'll bring a project to council and say, we think it's going to cost this to fix this problem. Council, do you want to move forward with this project? I'll give you a budget. And I'm going to be trying to line out what I think the design cost is going to be, construction management, and construction cost.
And usually, sorry to interrupt, but when those decisions are made, that's outside the 120 contracted, correct?
That would be, once you guys agree that we need to do a design contract, whether it's my firm doing it or another firm that we're going to go out to RFP for, that would be a decision made by council. And typically, like I said, it's at that point we would say, okay, do we have funds to go do this? Is there funds in roads and streets to do this? Is there funds in sewer to go do this?
But it's outside the regular contracted 120.
Exactly, and so those budgets would come from those funds, and it would be outside of that 120.
The preparation for it would be out of our budget, but the actual project would be out of a special.
Right, and so we're trying to move to that as quickly as possible. So I would say typically a project like that will be spending between $2,000 and say $6,000 total to look at a problem, figure out what we want to do, talk to staff, talk to public works staff, talk to administrator about the best way to move forward, and then define it as a project and bring it forward to council. And some of those have come forward and they said, no, we don't want to do that. And I said, okay, and it goes away.
Okay. Was that it, Scott?
Just one last. I know Ruth is gone for this question. Do you know, just off chance, the amount that was paid on special contracts last year?
Under the special assignment rate, I think it was around $35,000 of the $120,000 was in the special assignment category. The majority of it was in the lowest rate category. Separate design projects are different budgeted projects out of roads and streets or sewer. There's another category we haven't really touched on, and that's plan check and map check. And we've been improving our system this year for getting those reimbursed by developers. So our plan check costs, and all the other cities do this, are reimbursable to review those centers. So folks pay the fee to the city, but they also have to pay the consultant costs, our costs, to review and provide comment on those development plans. And that's a process we've been trying to fix in this last year, and Gary and I have spent a lot of time, and Ruth as well, to figure out how we're going to make sure we do a better job of tracking and invoicing that, so those costs don't end up hitting general fund and then are paid for by the development community for development work. It's been a change for the city, because before we didn't have a contract city engineer doing that work. We had a full salaried position handling that, so they just did all that work within their salary. But really, I mean, all that time could have been tracked and reimbursed specifically. So it's a little different process now with a contract city engineer when it comes to plan check and map check fees. But we've got a system in place now to recover those costs.
Okay. Council Member Pittman.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Mike. It's been my experience that if we have grant fundings, the importance of having the information about what our grant needs. In your search of the files in the department, have you seen any list that would what I define as a substandard street, which doesn't have curb and gutter sidewalk?
We have a lot, especially in the South Oroville area.
Do we have such a list that gives us, say, linear feet?
Oh no, I mean, there is a sort of a general master plan that we inherited from the county when it comes to storm drainage in the South Oroville area. Okay. But there's nothing in there that defines converting that entire community over to curb gutter and sidewalk. That would be a significant undertaking, I can tell you. There would be, I mean, it's one thing to lay in sidewalk and curb and repave a street, but to convert that area, which is a system of ditches and storm drains, over to street flow and then underground, it would be a significant program. I mean, it could be done, but it would take a lot of money.
But am I correct in assuming that if that would be possibly done or considered by a grant, we'd have to have that listed?
Yeah, we would have to develop that. We'd have to spend, I'll put it this way, some of our own money as a city to develop a plan, right, and maybe have a consultant put together a list of improvements for that to come up with the total cost, and that could then be used to pursue grant funds. There's not a lot out there on the storm drain side when it comes to grant funds. For sewer, it's a little bit better, state revolving fund, water projects, but it's a great deficit in the state when it comes to storm drains specifically. There's Scott probably knows this better than I do, but there was a push to try to get a 218 a process for special funds and rates and fees for storm drainage put forward. It was rejected, and I think at this point, if that policy is going to go forward, it would have to go all the way to Supreme Court for a city or special district to start levying fees and collect funds for via 218 process for storm drainage. So it's a problem throughout the state. How do you fund storm drainage improvements?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Council Member Smith.
Yeah, just real quick. So project management, so your firm comes alongside Gary, kind of gives that assistance as far as inspections and whatnot as those projects are moving forward. Is that something your staff does as a part of that consulting fee?
Somewhat, yeah. If it's a small project, we'll try to do the CM in-house. For bigger projects like the road paving projects, I brought in a secondary construction management firm just because of the volume of oversight and time needed. And also in that case, particular expertise was really helpful to budget that separately. We don't have a dedicated group of construction managers within my firm that does that work on a day-to-day basis. So we'll usually be looking to supplement that. But given that I'm only here 1 to 2 days a week, there is I would say a deficiency in the ability to do inspections on a regular basis and to back-check encroachments. That is a challenge for the city, and I rely heavily on folks like Cody and Wade and Gary. I think it's the 5th or 6th hat that Gary wears as he goes out and handles a lot of our inspections. So I do them when I'm here and when I can, but yeah.
I think one of the things you're probably seeing from us is trying to identify areas that we need to bolster, as far as additional support to staff. And that was just a concern, back of my mind, a concern.
Yeah.
And additionally, so deferred maintenance when it comes to roads, do we have anything that tracks where we are regarding our streets and roads as far as a schedule? Because typically, there was a schedule, I would assume, fairly safely, and I'm sure that we're not tracking with that. Just a gut guess. And so, is there some process by which we're kind of managing that? At least we know the impact of deferred maintenance to our streets, roads, and infrastructure.
Yeah, I would say not to the degree I would like to see, where it's a very definitive list of streets and timetables and costs. In order to kind of save time and costs and get right to paving some streets, I just went back to a 2011 study we had on pavement management and said, okay, these are the worst streets we got according to a study that was previously done. No need to spend that money again. No one's touched those streets since then, so they still need help. And then I went out and did a few window surveys with Wade and to talk to our operations staff about where they're filling the most potholes, where we're getting the most complaints, and focus on those streets. And so we've developed a list. So we've sort of added to the list and developed that list from 2011. We ticked off a few of them last year. We want to do 6 or 7 more this year. And it's way behind where we'd like to be. But we're going to try to use every bit of money we have that's dedicated to roads and streets to catching up where we can and really address the worst ones. I can tell you the criteria we use when we're looking at it is obviously basic road condition, but also accessibility to schools and public services and county buildings, things like that, higher routes of travel, and focusing on those first. And the other thing we try to do is spread it around a little bit. There's some deteriorated streets kind of everywhere. We're not going to do it all in one neighborhood. We're going to try to spread it around as best we can. We had a mandate last year, a request from the planning department, or planning to review our list of streets. I provided a list that Gary brought forward to planning committee last year of about 10 or 12 streets that we're prioritizing. Most of those are on the list for this year. You'll be able to look at them when I bring that staff report forward of the ones we're targeting for this year. But it's sort of a continuation of that list. We have not gone to the step yet of surveying every street and then coming up with a cost estimate for it. A lot of times those lists and the list that we provide to the California Transportation Commission, instead of a blanket assumption of like slurry seal, well, in some cases these roads need more than that. So,
and again, I think that a lot of these questions are for a one-on-one setting. I'd like to keep it moving with the just the explanation of duties for each department. This time we're about halfway through. I'd like to take about a 5-minute recess. That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
stop here and reschedule these for another day? 'Cause I know, I think Chuck has a meeting at noon. Yeah, bump this along. Brief summary. Well, we'll just go as far as we can, and when we get close, then if we have to stop, then we'll just. I mean, if worse comes to worse, we can bring some of these back at the presentation to council, 5-minute presentation at the beginning of council.
If we only get through planning for this
Well, we could see where we're at. We don't even know. What I was going to tell you guys was on this one. Look at that. Budgeting time. That's actually why I was late today.
I don't know that they go hand in hand, but I think I like the sound of fat and happy.
My doctor doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, but are you happy?
Yeah, I like it. I'm happy.
Well, he's gonna take the dog for a ride out. Yes.
They don't mind mine. No, we're just talking about Spurs. All three of them.
I can tell you all about Spurs if you want to know.
No, I don't. I know. I was just.
I know. I know. You brought it up. You know what? I'm going to tell you about my Spurs at some point.
Okay.
Just know that I'm going to come into your office and be like, all right, you want to know the history of the Spurs? I'll tell you. It's a long story.
So they're not climbing Spurs, they're riding Spurs? It's like a schedule.
Yeah. I was in the cavalry in the army.
My brother-in-law retired from the first cavalry.
Is that right? Well, he's got some Spurs somewhere. Probably a cowboy hat,
His
too.
dress uniform doesn't look anywhere near that. See, they got the ugliest dress.
You know, the Army dress uniform changed when I was in. They changed from these old beat-up, green, ugly uniforms, and then they went to a blue uniform.
Yeah, there are so many colors on it. It just looks mismatched.
It doesn't look right because even their dress blues, their jacket's one color, the pants are a different color, and then if you're an NCO or an officer, you got a stripe running down the side that's a different color.
Here's an
again.
E8, so they had that stripe too.
Okay, yeah, that goofy looking yellow stripe. Yeah, that thing was terrible.
Have you seen that picture when we got promoted.
So E8, so that's Cavalry Sergeant Major.
I think it was, I don't know, honestly, I thought it was first sergeant, but it's a rank in the Army. My son in the Air Force.
Did you say E8?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said E9.
No, E8.
Yeah, so at E8, that's pay grade, so you're either a first sergeant or a master sergeant.
Well, he did both. He was first sergeant, master sergeant, retired as a first sergeant.
The only difference between master sergeant and first sergeant is a master sergeant does not have an entire company under him, where a first sergeant has an entire company.
You know,
It's just how many people are responsible.
no word. Wow. No, a lot of that. Yeah, but
He can't get right to the exact right now.
I think it could be difficult to do that. I'm friends up there. So we're supposed to June when
One reason to join the Air Force is
so we're
they
supposed to
don't
went
deploy
tonight.
as much or for as long as
And then she'll hang out with
Marines.
because we're staying with
He missed the birth of his first child when he was in Afghanistan. And then he's in Jordan.
one of the bridesmaids was much closer to where we're staying with her, so she can hang out with her.
Gets a letter for his next deployment before
And
he's
then it was actually them that let us know about the evening, and they're going west. So I was thinking, oh,
2/3 of my time overseas
Now, one
with
thing
my
that's nice
family.
about the Army is we took a year-long deployment, so they have the longest deployments, but then you're exempt for a year unless you want it. You guys want it, you can, but you're non-deployed for a year after.
And he did, even though he did 7 tours over there, he only did 20 years in the Army. He went in at 34 years old. He was a drill instructor for a while too.
So we're ready.
You know what's weird about drill sergeants?
I'd like to call this special meeting back to order.
And they'll walk like that for their entire life.
Well, thank you for your service.
Starting with the second half, this meeting is about introductions and a brief description of what we do with our departments as our department heads, what we cover. So if we could keep it to that, we can expedite it and get everyone out of here. Thank you. Next, we have Parks and Trees with Wade Atterbury.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Wade Atterbury. I'm the Public Works Supervisor for the Parks, Trees, and Streets Department. So the Parks and Trees Department currently consists of 2 park technicians. We have 1 opening. Currently, we had 1 employee retire in December, so we do have 1 opening. So we have had 3 in the last few years. The park technicians perform a large variety of tasks throughout the city and the Parks Department. They do all aspects of tree work, all aspects of park maintenance, irrigation, equipment operation, building maintenance, cleaning facilities, work in special events, and many other tasks. We have over 40 acres of parkland we maintain. Parks and facilities. In the parks, we clean the restrooms or try to clean the restrooms on an average of 4 days a week. We encounter graffiti and vandalism almost every time we work in the parks. We try to abate the graffiti before most of the public sees it. So we're constantly out there painting, graffiti remover, whatever, power washing. Vandalism, we get a lot of vandalism in the parks, so we spend a lot of our time cleaning, painting, repairing, replacing. Again, a lot of these repairs, they're done before the public notices. We're currently in the process of trying to track all the time spent on abating graffiti and making repairs due to vandalism, so we can bring some of those reports forth for public and your information to see what we're up against out there. Parks and facilities, out of the 2 employees, 1 employee works weekends. We have 7-day coverage, 10.5 months out of the year. The weekend person opens and closes museums, cleans facilities, works events, and oversees the reservations. The weekend person tends to work odd hours. You could have opening, closing of the lot home. You could have the municipal auditorium just rented out from 6 a.m. to 2 in the morning. They could be opening Pioneer Museum, working in a wedding at the lot home or Centennial Plaza, things like that. So we have a big number of facilities and parks that people can reserve. In the museums, we're responsible for five museums: the Lot Home, Chinese Temple, Bolt, Antique Tool Museum, Pioneer Museum, and the Bathhouse and Nature Center. We're responsible for cleaning, opening, closing, building maintenance, and other general needs in those facilities. Irrigation, Parks Department is responsible for over 60 irrigation systems throughout all the parks, green areas, and facilities. The park staff routinely checks these systems, makes repairs, adjusts water times as temperature changes, perform water audits, and overhauls the irrigation systems. The trees, the Parks and Trees Department is responsible for 5,000 trees that are currently inventoried, plus another estimated 7,000 trees that are not inventoried. We perform all aspects of tree work, like I said, from planting, watering, trimming, diagnosing disease, removals, and stump removal. We've been a Tree USA for 38 years now. It's a great honor. We do conduct an Arbor Day celebration every year at a school, and we invite the public and all council members to that. So on the street side, the streets department currently consists of 3 operators. I do have 1 operator out long-term right now, so I only have 2 operators in the street department. Street department is responsible for all streets, sidewalks, alleys, drainage ditches, storm drains, retention basins, regulatory signs, weed abatement, and other miscellaneous duties. Pretty broad spectrum out there. We have over 105 miles of streets, and this includes filling potholes, street dig-out repairs, paving, shoulder work, street sweeping, and keeping the streets clear of debris. The street department sweeps as much as possible. We used to sweep 40 hours a week all year long. With the reduction of staff, we're lucky to sweep 1 week out of the month. Currently we're sweeping because of the fall and the leaf season. We're sweeping almost every day that we can. I've actually ran 2 street sweepers when I could this year to try to keep up with the amount of leaves we have. We also have the leaf pickup program. 2 months out of the year, citizens can pile leaves on the streets. So that consists of taking the loader and a couple 5 yards out and picking up leaf piles with the large loader, large volume of leaves in the downtown area especially. Street markings, we do all the street markings in town. School zones are usually painted once a year, but it's a ongoing every year maintenance issue. Concrete, we have over 80 miles of sidewalks in the city of Oroville. We monitor sidewalks for raised areas, usually due to tree problems, cracks, and areas that aren't ADA compliant. We remedy the problems by grinding the sidewalk or removing and replacing. Storm drains, we have over 80 miles of open ditch and storm drain pipe. The crew inspects and cleans the open ditches, and the street crew also sprays the ditches with herbicides to prevent weed growth. Besides the weed growth and debris, the ditches, we're seeing an increase in transient camps in our ditches. That's the bottom slide there. Somebody made a nice camp, and that's underwater right now with the rain. So if one of those mattresses floats down and gets caught up in a drain, we're in a real issue there. So we're constantly monitoring them and cleaning them throughout the summer and winter. We also have over 1,250 drop inlets that the water can go into the storm drain system. We keep constantly keeping those clear and clean of debris and leaf litter to prevent flooding. We're also, the street department does weed abatement. We're responsible for all weed abatement on city-owned properties, including the airport. It's about 44 acres, retention basins, the levee, and other city-owned parcels. We achieve this with mowing, weed eating, grading, and using herbicides. We utilize CAL FIRE Inmate Crew, the SWAP program, the Sheriff Work Alternative Program, and other areas and things where we can. It's a large responsibility, though. Signs. We've got over 2,700 regulatory signs. We're constantly changing them out due to vandalism, graffiti, or them getting knocked over. We also make all the street name signs in-house. So when one gets faded out or damaged, we have to make a new street name sign, like 4th Avenue or Montgomery Street, for example. We got to make those and put those up. Spraying, we have a large spray program. We spray the airport twice a year. We spray all roadways, not all roadways, we try to, ditches, alleyways, a lot of areas. The Parks Department also sprays tree wells and in the parks and things like that. So we use a lot of herbicides to try to keep the weeds down, keep the handwork to a minimum. Alleys, we're in charge of keeping the alleys clean. We've got over 6 miles of alleys. It's a daunting task now that we've took on Southside. We can't keep up with the illegal dumping that goes on. But we clean them. We trim all the trees and things away out of the alleys, keeping them open for emergency vehicles and things. Spread base rock where need be. And like I said, pick up the illegal dumping. And so it's kind of an overview of parks, trees, and streets. Some of my jobs consist of scheduling employees, training employees, setting up jobs, handling citizens' concerns and complaints, writing staff reports, conducting the Arbor Day. I'm kind of the city's unofficial arborist. I am a certified arborist, but so I do a lot of the tree work, diagnose some of the problems, do tree selection for planting and things, planning for special events such as Feather Fiesta Days, Christmas Light Parade, various museum events, employee evaluations, keeping the city in compliance with herbicide spraying. I got a QAC, so everybody that sprays herbicide sprays under my license. I report monthly to the county ag commissioner on the amount of spray. I keep the permit up to date, the herbicide use permit, keep that up to date with the county. Budgets, receipts, park commission meetings, council meetings as needed, docent meetings, various other meetings, inspect landscape plans for businesses, inspect landscape installations, review landscape maintenance agreements, timesheets, attendance, work in the field when possible, collect money out of the museums. So just a little bit of everything. 2013, there were 6 people in parks and trees, 4 people in streets. We had 1 seasonal employee as well. At one time, there were 6 employees in each department. 2015, we had 4 employees in parks, 3 in streets, 1 seasonal. 2017, we had 3 employees in each department with 1 seasonal. 2018, 3 employees in each department with no seasonal. Currently, we have 2 employees in streets. Like I said, 1's out with a long-term problem, and 1 in parks just retired. I'm also in charge of the building maintenance technician, so we do get to utilize him out in the parks when we can. We do utilize SWAP, WEX, CAL FIRE prisoners. We're looking at the sheriff's work crew right now to help out, and service groups, but none of these can replace a skilled employee. Last 15 years, we've added the Bolt Antique Landscaping, Centennial Plaza, Highway 70 on and off ramps, Bedrock Park, Municipal Auditorium, Centennial Cultural Center, the roundabouts, airport landscaping. You can see the list goes on and on. We've added that in the last 15 years while cutting the staff level in half. It's a daunting task out there. Street department, same thing. In the last 12 years, we took on weed abatement. We've annexed the large majority of Southside. We're helping OPD and code enforcement now more than ever with transient camps and cleanups. And again, you cut the street department in half. You guys didn't, but just through problems, street department's been cut in half. So what problems? Problems are lying, trees aren't getting removed in a timely manner. Sidewalks are out of control. Instead of doing 35 yards of concrete a year, we're doing 12 because of the staffing levels. So we're not keeping up with concrete, we're not keeping up with trees. Basically, we're getting everything, just it's taking a lot longer to get to those areas. And so we have a lot of problems, and also this lack of employee training. We're not backfilling positions, and we don't have the luxury and the time to train employees to work at a journey level in some of those fields because we're just constantly putting out fires. We're not spending the time, I feel, training employees properly. Departmental needs, we're grossly understaffed. We need more employees. We not only need more employees, but we need to compete with other employers to attract journey level skilled employees. We need to be able to replace equipment and vehicles on a more timely basis. I think we need to create a tree lead position, and I think maybe I'm getting a little off track here, but I'm just sharing some of the needs with you. And one other thing is I feel we need clear-cut direction from City Council. Like for trees example, I need clear-cut direction if I'm allowed to make decisions on tree removals and things like that, and bring those reports to you if needed, or you know, if it's a controversial tree, historical tree, bring that forth and let you make the decision. That's about it. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Wade. How many people do you think you would need in your department to be fully staffed?
At least 5 in parks and trees and 5 in streets.
That would be a total?
Total of 10.
10 more. 10 more?
No, 10 total.
Okay. Well, thank you. Amazing. Does anyone?
I just wanted to say, I've run large properties, you know, maintenance department. I don't know how you do it. So this is definitely an issue that we need to take up and deal with, you know, sooner or later.
Great.
Appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
And if we hadn't made it clear before, I would personally like to say thank you to everyone here, because I know that everyone here has stepped up and done more than they signed up for, and thank you. Public Works, Cody Nissen.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. Welcome back. Welcome to some of you. My name is Cody Nissen. I'm the Public Works Operations Supervisor in charge of the Sewer Division and Fleet. As far as the Sewer Division goes, we have 5 full-time employees currently, plus myself, and 1 current vacancy. Overview of the division, we have 8 sewer pump stations, including Hewitt Park, which is a dedicated station to the park that just takes care of the restrooms there. There's 2 stormwater pump stations, Linkside out the other side of the airport, and the Huntoon stormwater pump station, which only conveys water to the river when the river is above the level of the outlet pipes at the lower end when the dam's pumping out in excess of 100,000 cubic feet per second. That thing doesn't run very much. 66.84 miles of gravity sewer main line, 2.12 miles of sewer force main that pushes it from the lower lying areas up over the hills and goes back to gravity. An average annual flow to the sewer treatment plant of 1.61 million gallons a day. 1.86 wet weather. Obviously there's a little bit of an increase with the groundwater infiltration here and there, and 1.356 in the dry weather. Personnel are on call 24/7 to handle all after hours emergencies pertaining to all departments. A lot of times we'll try to call in someone else if it's a tree down, something that's a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but generally we'll just take care of it so as to keep others from having to come out and address those issues. Little fact I added on here, this that may get overlooked by some folks, is that the sewer's flowing through the city's infrastructure 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This might seem like a no-brainer, but a lot of this stuff, nobody pays a lot of attention to it until it comes above the ground. You know, it's going at all times. Touched on the amount of flow that we get out to the treatment plant, 1.61 million gallons on average. Nobody cares about that. They care about the 50 gallons that happens every great now and again. There may be a spill. That's what the focus is, not the other 1.5999 million gallons that made it out there. So it's always going like the freeways down the Bay Area. It's happening constantly. So typical duties: clean all city-owned sewer lines with a goal of covering the entire system within a 3-year period. We're currently exceeding that goal. Ongoing condition assessment of all city-owned sewer lines via the use of CCTV camera equipment with a goal of covering the entire system every 5 years. We are also exceeding that goal currently. Sewage and stormwater pump station checks, a minimum of 2 times per week. 2 of these stations are within extremely close proximity to the Feather River, and others are near seasonal watersheds. Maintenance of the stationary electric generators at pump station facilities. Repair to aging infrastructure through the use of internal pipe patch method where possible, and excavation and ongoing effort to mitigate any groundwater infiltration and sewer exfiltration. And complete some confined space entries. This touches a little bit, a couple of pictures on the some of the repair work that takes place. You can see the lower slide tree roots are a major issue for the aging clay pipes that we have, a lot of that in the downtown area. And unfortunately, as you can see to the left of that lower slide, the tree roots entering through that private lateral connection. Those are 4-inch stub outs for a private lateral. We have a lot of issues with that, really a lot, and there's not much we can do about that other than keeping the intrusions out of our line. The upper slide shows just a pipe that's been slip lined, and the repair was needed to be made because the contractor didn't cut the liner out properly. Basically cut off about 50% of that lateral.
Just a quick question.
Yes,
what's the scale on that pipe? Is that a 6-inch?
That's a 6-inch, yeah, with 4-inch laterals coming in on both sides. Night work, approximately 2 weeks a year spent at night, working generally on State Route 162, as well as other high traffic areas in town in an effort to mitigate business disruption. Some of the work we do on 162 is coordinated with Caltrans and the California Highway Patrol for their efforts, their expertise in some of that. And we've had some interesting things happen. One night, I think the highlight, we had a shooting take place right up the road, and it ended in our work zone on Oro Dam in front of Hobby Auto Center. A person had been shot stopped to seek refuge with the highway patrol that was out there assisting us. So confined space entries. Crews enter confined spaces a minimum of 2 times per week for station checks. This is a clean environment, but it is considered as a confined space, so we take all precautions on that. Crews may also be required to enter other confined spaces, such as manholes for equipment placement and or periodic debris removal. We try very hard to not have to do that. Very briefly, upcoming departmental needs on the sewer side, replacement of about a 19-year-old combination Vector truck and additional CCTV van for use in the sewer. Predict it'll be necessary in the not too distant future because of the mandates from the state, condition assessment of all the storm drain infrastructure. Current working unit is on the sewer assessment at least 75% of the time, so I predict that we're going to end up needing to get some CCTV in the storm drain systems soon. My duties: crew activity coordination and planning, CCTV video review, California Integrated Water Quality System, which is CWIX, mandatory reporting, responding to citizen and customer concerns, underground utility locating, for the USA North, flow meter checks, training, respond to and coordinate emergency response activities during and after normal business hours, among multiple other things, many of which Wade mentioned earlier on his report, employee evaluations and such. Moving to Fleet Maintenance Division. Fleet has 3 full-time employees. Responsible for maintenance and repairs of 138 vehicles and trailers, including public works, parks, fire, police, city hall, etc. Responsible for the maintenance and repairs of handheld and wheeled power equipment, ranging from chainsaws, weed eaters, etc., to backhoes, wheel loaders, and other heavy equipment. Maintenance tasks range from simple oil changes all the way to engine and transmission removal and replacement, patrol car setups for the cages in the back, electrical components, light bars, etc., fire apparatus modifications, and the list goes on and on. Tire repair, replacement, balancing is all done in-house except for that on the backhoes and large equipment that's out of our reach, so to speak. And nearly all the welding projects and steel fabrication are handled by the fleet maintenance staff as well. Upcoming needs, don't really need to touch much on this. We can talk about this later on in budget request things, but just a small list of things. The main thing that I've been asking for that I think is really important as far as personnel goes and environmental issues, and that's the insulation of the facility that these gentlemen work in. It's a large metal building with very, very, very little airflow, no way to cool it other than a fan blowing the 110 degree air from outside through the building. It's kind of like working in a hot box. So touched on that in the past, requested that, and we've kind of gone nowhere with that. So I think it's something that really needs to be looked at. Had some old budget numbers. I don't have that with me today, but it's not a huge cost for what these guys are having to deal with down there. So before I touch on questions, I want to hand this out real quickly. I want to make sure that we got, didn't leave out our electrical division. We're going to be speaking about that today. They are a big portion. This was, I use the word afterthought, but. So under Public Works is also our electrician, one person, and his duties include the airport, repair runway, navigational and safety lighting, entrance and exit gates, aviation fuel inspection, testing, receiving, and maintenance, and maintain all airport buildings, hangars, and restrooms. The restrooms, we can omit that. I believe that's being handled by an outside agency now. General duties: police, fire, city hall, housing, and corporation yard facilities, as far as all the electrical systems that go with those. Backup generators, assist building inspection department, and USA for underground utilities. And that would be for the traffic detector loops that we have at the intersections and places like that. He'll handle that stuff. Parks and museums, same thing, lighting, electrical systems. The city solar systems, that was touched on briefly. I believe somebody asked Mike about that. But there are 7 solar systems that he maintains and keeps working properly. Street lights, service and repairs, approximately 1,400 street lights. Assessment district lighting, inspections, and repair. And he'll assist the sewer division with lift station repairs and TV van electrical repairs as needed. And traffic signals, maintenance and upgrade to 9 city traffic signals, and assist Butte County with maintenance and repairs on their 10 traffic signals. So with that, is there any questions?
Yeah, you in your staff report, you said that you have one space available, one opening.
Yes.
Is that due to per the budget? Or
no, that individual departed here late calendar year 2018, and that position hasn't been filled. Things are a little bit slower with the winter right now, so I'm holding off on filling that position till springtime.
So you're pretty much fully staffed.
Yes,
okay, all right.
Anything else?
Just to clarify, your department is funded by the sewer fee process.
Correct. Yes, it is an enterprise fund.
But because of that, the people who pay for collection of that goes directly to your department.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why we're staffed the way we are, and we're able to keep up on things and all that, and keep the equipment going and our facilities, and again, put as much money as we can in the best way possible into the system to keep everything underground, for lack of a better term.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No other questions? All right, well, thank you, Cody. Next is Planning and Building, Gary Lehman.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. Gary Lehman, Chief Building Official, Fire Marshal, Acting Planner, Community Development Director, Public Works. There's a number of things that I do. The Planning and Building Division consists of myself, Jody Hunsberger, and Cecilia Kimona. I can't say enough about my staff, Jody and Cecilia. They both came to us as WEX workers, for those that aren't familiar or are familiar with WEX workers, and turned into getting a city employee job, and they helped me out very well and very good. Glad to have them. This is Jody. She's a permit technician, also issues the city business licenses, helps with code enforcement, helps with public works, issues all the permits, fees, figures all the fees, does all the fee scheduling and that. And then she's also helps up in the front when we get short, because we're short-staffed. So when others take breaks, she's able to go up there, and they work great together as a team, covering for each other during lunch and breaks. Next is Cecilia Carmona. She is code enforcement, staff assistant, issues building permits, encroachment permits, business licenses, acts as the administration up there, secretary, does all the greeting of the people as well. And so she's up there, does a great job. She also came as a WEX worker and came in to be a full-time city employee, and I can't say enough about her and the help. The planning department, with the planning department, staff has done the Oroville Hospital mitigated negative declaration. This was done from scratch, created from scratch by staff, and put forward to the Planning Commission, the City Council for approval through the state, all the state reviews, and as well as the county, and has now been approved. We also do the Planning Commission. The staff puts together the staff reports and that for it. The zoning and designs, planning goes through the zoning ordinance, follows the zoning ordinance, lets people know what they can and can't build, or what's available, or what can be used in other areas. Also, staff is works on revising, which you will see coming up in time, modifications to that to make the city more friendly user or business user environment. Planning also, staff attends or runs the Planning Commission meetings, not necessarily runs, but attends and does the Planning Commission meetings one night a month, and goes from there. Also, the planner goes out and we do the plan review when the plans come in through plan check for the planning stage, and at the final stages they go out and review it at the final stage as well for the inspection. The new planner that we have with the city at this time is creating kind of an image for the city of Oroville, so it's not, I don't mean to say ghetto or anything, but so there's more an enthusiastic appearance when people come into the city of Oroville. And as you can see is the wainscoting. If you can see the Bulldog Taqueria there, you can see some wainscoting down there with just the green metal. Well, that wasn't designed that way. It was the city that required that be put in, along with some extra landscape. You can see the Ross building there. Well, that's how they wanted it to be. However, the planner is requiring that wainscoting go all the way across the front 4 foot up to match the entire building. So it's a cosmetic appearance, because that's what planning does, is you want to create that image of what comes in to the city. Building department, there's myself as the chief building official. Fire marshal, I do plan reviews. You can see my plan review area there. I do have a part-time assistant that is actually a municipal law enforcement, and he comes over and helps me half a day during the week to do the residential inspections, which is very helpful. Work very close with Mr. Ron Belser. Ron Belser is one of the top employees, I feel, in the city of Oroville, and he allows us, as well as chief, for me to be able to pull someone over to help me out through my time and need. On the right there you can see a building that's called the Washington Building, for those that aren't familiar. The staff coming in as the new building official understands existing buildings, historic building codes and that, and is allowing the revitalization of downtown Oroville, where a lot of the buildings were condemned, as people don't realize that. And I've had to go down to the county and get them off of the recorder from condemnation because of bringing them up. And one building that has been brought up that is the Oroville Inn. And I think that the Oroville Inn, a lot of people thought there was no faith in that building, that building basically needed to come down because it was a toothpick, a fire hazard. However, through design and that, of utilizing the building codes on existing buildings and that, we've been able to revitalize, because that's why we have those codes. So the understanding there. A fire marshal, operates as a fire marshal. I do the plan reviews for fire sprinkler suppression systems. I do the inspections on those for the alarm systems and those as well. Work very closely with the fire department as well, and OPD. The reason that I involve them or let them know, make them aware when the buildings, like let's say for instance the Marshall buildings or the old Walmart building, when it was at the framing stage, I set up for the whole fire department staff to be able to go look at the building in the rough stages, because they never understand or know what's actually being in there and built when they are different, where people don't realize. And they are our public safety, which need to know not just, hey, what it's like at the final stage, but what it's also like at the rough stage. And that, because there they have security wire and security layers in the walls that people can't get to. So when they have to go in for safety purposes and layout. Public Works, it indicates here in our municipal code that the Public Works Department is administrated by the, enforced by the building official under the direction of the city engineer. We have a consulting city engineer at this time, so I basically oversee that department. I do work very closely with Mike. I work closely with Wade, with Cody, and all our staff. I'm very grateful and thankful for the staff that we do have. Cody and Wade, I can't say enough about them and the staff that they do have. On the left there, you can see that that used to be the inspector's office. When I came on, there was a public works inspector, there was a public engineer, a city engineer, and a senior public works inspector. So there were 3 people in that department. There aren't at this time. As Mike had indicated in his, I work with them. As you can see on the right-hand side, I do the inspections on the site, which is the underground, the infrastructure in that. It kind of makes it easier for me, I know what's gone on with the whole project and able to review and go through that. Mike does the plan reviews, and I do the inspections on that. As far as the supervisor, myself, I've brought recognition to the city of Oroville, or not myself, but staff works with the Department of General Services, DSA, Division of State Architects, in writing the codes for the 2019 California Building Code. At this time, I'm working with that. You can see on the right there that that's the California Building Officials, which is the largest inspection industry in the United States, and I'm the chair of the Access Committee. There's recognition there that the city, for being a trainer on the codes and the codes development. And then on the left is, that was a good day for me. That was handing over, and that's Senator Nielsen handing over the presidency of the Exchange Club of Oroville to Sherry Bunker, as representing the city of Oroville for that. Additionally, other items supervisor does. When I have a truck, I pick up shopping carts along with everybody else. We have designed a roof program to fix all the roofs. And once again, I can only give a good big thanks to Wade and his crew and Cody and them, because we all work together as a team. We're a small city, so we work together and do what we need to do. That is on the center top. That's the State Theater. We had $300 and some $1,000 estimate to re-roof that roof at the State Theater. We did it for less than $5,000, or just a little over $5,000. On the lower left-hand corner, we have that's the Chinese temple. We had an estimate of $30,000, approximately $30,000 to re-roof that. You can see the picture right to the right of that. We went in and did that for approximately $1,500. That's the experience I have as a past roofing contractor and ability to utilize our staff. Sometimes you can see on the lower right corner, yeah, that's myself in the blue. That's our staff. Because we are so small staffed, we work together as a team to get things done. Curb ramps are very important with ADA. ADA is a major topic of litigation, so just helping to see that complies with the minimum requirements of the code and help them pour some concrete. Working as a team. And saving money from having to bring others in. One thing that Mike had mentioned and Wade has mentioned as well is the repairs of the sidewalks and also the trees. One thing that I can ask you is, we need power of authority to make some decisions on some of these trees. And I'm going to take one place, an example is right down here at the Noodle House. We have a tree out there that's lifting up the sidewalk, is creating a gap. That now is going inside of the building and creating a gap in their floor at the break. We need to be able to have the decision to take these trees down in lieu of having to take it all the way to council and to everybody in concerns of whether we're going to get in trouble or not for taking out trees that need to be done. I know Chief has expressed also about the routing systems going into the sewer. Here's another thing, the supervisor bringing recognition to the city of Oroville. I attended in Florida the exchange convention, annual exchange convention. The exchange club did pay my airfares. I paid the rest. but brought Oroville to the map in recognition in the Exchange Club for the country. Also, the parades, if you look at the lower right, that's announcing at the parades. We get involved with helping the community and running the parades. And that on the right-hand side, that search for talent. And then also in the center there, you can see what we also assist with others with doing fundraisers and that. And that was a fundraiser for the Boy Scouts. I do have to thank as well our Parks and Trees Department and Sewer Department of coming together during the parades and helping clean up after the parades, prepping for the parades and that. Pretty much that's all I have. If you have any questions, yeah, it runs us loony every once in a while.
Thank you, Gary. My question is, you have multiple departments, but what are you looking at for fully staffing these departments?
Well, I come from the private sector, so I look at things a little differently than others sometimes. I think that if I were able to have a planner, a full-time planner, full-time public works inspector, and full-time building inspector, then that would be very good. I could go with a part-time inspector for building, a part-time public works inspector, but a full-time planner. We have no one in the planning department, and that's very time-consuming.
As far as your clerks and things up front, that staff there, what would you need there? I know that I'm getting several phone calls about no business license being issued.
Well, the business licenses are being issued. Mm-hmm. And so, but for up there, yes, we could use 2 additional staff members. We do have one that we're, a position that we're in the process of interviewing for at this point in time.
Okay.
But additional as well, as you can see when you guys come in, I know because sometimes you'll see that there's one person up there, and if they get called away, there's no one there. And so having 2 staff up there is very important. We do have the ability that we utilize WEX program for these, but for fully staffing, I feel that an additional 1 or 2 positions up there in the front.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Sure, brief question. I know cities time to time adopt the building codes as they come out forward. What code do we currently have the city has adopted, in what year?
Well, at this point in time, the code process, because of the adoption and the lack of time and staffing to do so, is the 2013 California Building Code. However, we operate under the 2016 California Building Code. There was a process with the codes of the adoption, and something was done that changed in our municipal code that was never brought to the building official for any comment or anything, and was just done because they used to just say adopt the code in its entirety, and I would like to go back to that.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, next we have Public Safety Department, and first up is our Oroville Fire Department, Isaac Ruiz.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council, Chief LeGrone. Okay, Mr. Mayor, you've indicated that you want these presentations to be a little bit shorter, so I'm going to do 33 years and 8 minutes, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the City of Oroville Fire Department. The beginning of it was in 1856. That's interesting. It's just kind of a fun fact. That makes us the second oldest fire department in the state of California. Only the City of Sacramento is actually older than we are. Next slide, please. Oh, I have it? Okay, so I think it's a bit of a misnomer at this point to even use the term fire department, because I think it's inaccurate as we are currently what the fire service is. It's probably more accurate to say emergency services other than anything criminal. So I'm going to talk a lot about today during this presentation of what the fire department actually does, because I feel like a lot of people, like I said, I don't think people know what it is that we do. So the mission of the Oroville City Fire Department, I'm going to read that to you. It shall be the mission of the Oroville Fire Department to protect and preserve life, property, and the environment of the citizens of the city of Oroville and surrounding areas. So that's the mission. And I'm going to talk about what operations that we use to actually accomplish that mission. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about emergency services, emergency medical services. Okay, that actually encompasses 65% of what we do. And a lot of people don't understand, why do you send a giant fire engine with 3 people on it to every single medical aid? Why not just send an ambulance? Well, the simple fact of the matter is that supports the mission of protecting and preserving life, property, and the environment in the city of Oroville. So that's why we do that. We go to traffic collisions. We have responsibility for extrication, vehicles being made safe, and any type of cleanup for all traffic collisions within and around the city of Oroville. We are also hazardous materials, first responder operational, and we are also have 2 technicians and 2 specialists that are on the Butte County Interagency Hazmat team. So we fulfill our part of the JPA by providing those 4 specialists in hazmat. We are part of the technical rescue team, which is the Butte County Interagency Rescue Group, to provide any technical rescue that includes water, high angle, low angle, confined space, and any other way someone could possibly need to be rescued, including animals and large animals. We are water and flood rescue, first response, as also part of that Butte County Interagency Rescue Group team. Last year we were able to procure a new boat. I do need some more training to get some of our people certified with boat rescue. We do all public service non-emergency, so that can include anything from a call where someone falls out of bed and just can't get up. They're not hurt, but they need for somebody to go out there and pick them up. We do those. We will do, if a pipe breaks in your house in the middle of the night, you call 911, we will respond to that. We will help you patch your roof. We do sandbags. We will do anything, again, that is not criminal, that someone would call our dispatch center for. That is the fire department. Daily training, we need to do at least 2 hours a day. So that's just one more thing that we're required to do. We are part of, we have responsibility to investigate all fires, just pretty much anything where smoke comes up and there's an incident. It is our responsibility to investigate for arson. We do have 2 arson investigators that are on the Butte County Fire Investigation Team. Also notably, we do have 1 firefighter who is cross-trained as a police officer to be able to take an arson investigation from cradle to grave, essentially, so she would be able to prosecute and go through that whole process. We are also responsible for public education, so that would include anything from school tours to large events to people coming by the station or groups coming by the station that would like a tour of the facility. We do that. Non-emergency hazard mitigation, or so that would include something where we would be first response to, like, say a tree falls down on a power line, or you call at 3 in the morning. Certainly Public Works is going to end up there eventually, but if we can take care of that, we will go take care of that. Oil slick on the road that's not big enough to actually be a hazmat incident, that's also going to be us. Sometimes we work with Public Works. They're great about coming out to help us with something that we can't handle that's too big. Pretty much, again, anything that you don't know who to send to, you send the fire department, because we're there 24/7 and we do it. Inspections and occupancy, inspections, we do occupancy and fire inspections. We have one person that is assigned as a prevention officer. Last year he was involved in 504 inspections, and that doesn't include the one time a year where he inspects every single lot in the entire city of Oroville for weed abatement. So that brings that number a lot higher. Any type of fire alarm, we're obviously first to that, and if somebody's alarm system is malfunctioning, we'll generally go out and see if we can figure out what the problem is and see if we can get their alarms working correctly, or if they need to turn it off, turn it back on, those types of issues. We are responsible for fire hydrant maintenance in the city of Oroville. Apparatus and equipment maintenance, that is a daily process, takes 2 to 3 hours. And then the facility maintenance at the fire department facility itself. I'm going to talk about fire here. I'll get to that, sorry. Okay, fire. So last year we had 261 fire incidents total. There's 63 building fires, 108 vegetation fires, 27 vehicles, 63 miscellaneous other types of fires. As everyone's probably well aware of, last year was the most destructive and worst fire season in the history of the state of California. Interestingly enough, the year before that also broke the record, so we've been doing it every year for 3 years now. The city of Oroville firefighters did deploy to the car fire and did extended deployment to the campfire incident as well. During that time, with our current staffing levels, we had every firefighter in the city of Oroville was on for at least 4 days at a time, then 1 day off. They did that for 70 days straight. Okay, this is what our structure looks like. Chief Lagrone is the public safety director. We have one admin assistant, the fire inspector that I was talking about. He's actually technically a fire engineer, but he's been taken off the engine to help with inspections and to fill that role. We're a 3-platoon system. We work a 48-96, so we're on duty for 48 hours straight. We have, again, 3 platoons. We have a battalion chief and or the deputy chief. Rob Buckout is actually the department head. I'm not. He's having some problems. He did lose his house in the campfire, so he hasn't been able to return to full duty yet. So I'm here in his place. Anyways, our platoons are 3 or 4 people right now. You can see there's vacancies on 2 of our platoons. And I told you I was going to get to 33 years in 8 minutes. So I think that this is a fairly telling slide. So in 1985, the population of the city of Oroville recorded was 97.55. In 2018, it is 19,895. The number of total line firefighters in 1985 was 20. Currently, it is 10. So that's a 50% drop in the number of personnel, while the population grew by 204%. Generally, the industry standard for ISO and NFPA, with the goal that you want to try to get to in firefighters per 1,000 residents is 1. In 1985, we had 2, so we were a very strong department at that time. Currently, we have less than 1/2 of 1 firefighter per 1,000 residents in the city. So that's a 364% decrease in that category. The call volume in 1985 was 1347. Call volume last year in 2018 was 4,597. So a 341% calls for service demand increase with half of the personnel to be able to do that job. And that is the conclusion. Do you have any questions for me today?
Do you have any volunteer positions?
No, sir, we don't currently have volunteers, and the reason that we don't have volunteers is because in the state of California, a volunteer firefighter has to have the exact same training and certification as all of your full-time personnel. So the concept of a volunteer being cheaper, they're really not that much cheaper because you really can't find people that have that amount of training and certification that are willing to work for free. We do have some creative ideas on how we could augment staffing, but it would be more of an internship type of an employee or a seasonal employee. But volunteers they used to be the way to go to be able to augment staffing, but if you're going to do it correctly, a volunteer program is actually quite expensive.
So what are you looking at to be fully staffed?
Fully staffed, immediately, I would need 2 more personnel to fill the 2 down positions that we have. Those positions are currently funded, but they're frozen. So I would need that. And then to get back to the presentation, if we were going to get anywhere near what staffing should be, I know this is unrealistic, but we have 10. We need 20. I would need 10 more total. Now I realize, like I said, I realize that's not going to happen. But in possibly a 3 to 5 year to maybe a 10-year plan, maybe we could think about trying to get closer to that 1 per 1,000 citizens.
Can you explain to me what the term frozen means in this situation?
I cannot serve. That's what I was told.
Thank you. Councilman Smith.
You've answered all my questions in the last minute. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we're approaching the noon hour. We're kind of at a crossroad here. We need to make a decision. Would you like to continue on, or would you like to continue this meeting to another day and hear the final presentations on another day?
Would my pre-scheduled meeting be the only reason we would stop?
Yes. It's the only one I'm aware of. I want to change my answer.
I hate to waste everyone's time. We have some remaining people here. I don't know if Councilman Thompson's able to forego his meeting.
Mr. Mayor, what we could do, if you'd like, is we could schedule each one of these for a presentation at the beginning of the next 3 council meetings. So you'll have a 5-minute presentation at the beginning of each meeting regarding each department, if you'd like. It's an option.
Okay, I would appreciate that. I'm sorry if I've wasted anyone's time. So do we have any speakers, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we have one speaker, John Miller George.
I used to come a lot more often, but to advocate for the city making money off of treating the homeless better. Now I'm homeless myself, so I'm a victim of the Camp Fire. My house did not burn, but various rules and regulations won't allow me to reoccupy my home. So I'm staying at the Red Cross shelter in Chico until the 31st. But I thought it was important enough to come and listen to the first meeting, and I have a few questions and whatnot. I can put them in writing and submit them to you for the next meeting if you'd like, but I would like to read a couple.
Are they pertaining to this agenda item, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
They're all questions of what's transpired here today.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Most of the issues that I've run into in the last year have been about Brown Act, and so I've been trying to find out what the rules are and the best way to implement things. I have a criticism of the last city council in that during the period of the fire, there wasn't one single emergency council meeting that I was made aware of. The other thing is the magic word for all of these departments and everything else is money. And so far, I haven't heard too much that's going to be any different than what you've done before in the past to get magic money here. The only thing that has happened to me in the since May has been to stymie any possible way of communicating with potential people to bring money here. I had thought, well, gee, maybe you could direct the city administrator to work with me. And I think that's probably it.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers?
That was the only speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Council have any comments?
Just thank you to all staff that showed. We learned a lot of information today, even an old salt like me.
Absolutely. Thank you, all of you. Amazing. So with that, this adjourns this special meeting of January 8th. And next meeting
15th.
Will be January 15th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
It's just begun.
Sorry.
I got glasses.
Oh yeah, 15 minutes for sure now. And that video feed, like.
Did we play it?
No, I didn't get to it yet. It's on there.
Because I was told that Ruth needs to go first.
Don't play now. Unless it's just for you.
It won't show yet.
Like, aren't we at the bottom anyway?